Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another live stream. Hope everyone is doing fantastic out there. It is Wednesday, August the 7th. Worked all day today, came home, ate way too much biryani for dinner, and then I decided, you know what? Let's do a live stream with friends because we are having the beautiful Liz Moore's on August the 10th. So I figured what better way to get ready for our live stream on the 10th than having all of you guys on. So here we are. And a couple of my fabulous subscribers actually gave this idea to me. And I was thinking about just doing a video today, but I thought maybe this idea would be more fun with some back and forth from the community, from you guys. And I really enjoyed the live stream that I did, the 1,000 subscriber live stream. If you have not watched that, I would urge you to check that out. That was a lot of fun. Just kind of kicking back and kicking the shit with you guys, so to speak. And so the idea of this video is maybe to highlight 10 perfumers and kind of their main accomplishment, or maybe what they're most famous for, like an accord, or what they really became famous for, or what note they used, or kind of when I think of that perfumer, what's the very first thing that kind of pops into my mind, right? So that's kind of the idea of the video. I thought it would be a fun way to just kind of hang out with you guys for about an hour or so before I hit the gym tonight. Scent of the day for me. Scent of the day, and it's funny because I went to work and I wore this. I don't even give a shit anymore. Is Quirtus, and I 8 o'clock in the morning when the guy that sits next to me walks in, he's like, "Dude, are you wearing that one again?" And I was like, "You can smell it?" He was like, "Yes, I can smell it." I was like, "Fantastic! Glad you can smell it, my friend." So Quirtus is it's absolutely phenomenal. I talked about it a lot in the Arise Ladore sort of Musk collection live stream that I did. But Angie sent me a sample, and so I brought the sample to work and actually reapplied like an asshole. But oh my God, it is so good. If you're a leather lover, if you can procure yourself a bottle of Quirtus, I would really urge you to. It's almost like it is almost like that more wearable, skin-friendly version of Arise Ladore's Cuir de Russie, which I just reviewed a Cuir de Russie yesterday from the house of Anna Zworynkina. So if you're a fan of those type of perfumes, this is definitely one to get your nose on. Really, really good stuff. Really enjoy wearing it. It's August in Texas. People always ask me, can I wear this in summer? I wear anything, anytime. I don't care about the seasons anymore. And so Quirtus is my very fun scent of the day for the office, which is fun times. What do you guys been wearing? Drop your scent of the day in the comments, and then we'll just kick this bad boy off. I've got about an hour. I'm thinking about an hour or so. So we'll see if we can knock some of this out. I picked 10 perfumers, just the very first 10 perfumers that kind of popped into my head. And so obviously this leaves more than enough sort of leftovers for us to come back and do maybe a second or a third installation of this video, depending on how it goes. But figured the feedback from you guys would be cool as well. So, Ryan, you're off this week, huh? Man, I need a week off. I'll tell you that. They cap our PTO at work. So, and I am literally at the cap. So I'm basically at that use it or lose it point. But with my job, it's almost easier if I actually just go to work and do it, because then it just piles up if I don't. So, unfortunately, that's kind of where I'm at. Marvelous, Rich. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you, my friend. Hope you are doing marvelous, man. You and I need to do a stream again. It's been a long time since we've streamed. You, me, and Jonathan need to stream. Thank you, Dushan. Appreciate you, man. Scent of the night, L'Artisan Parfumeur Premier Figuier Extreme. I don't think I've ever smelled that. Is that a fig fragrance? Premier. Let's see. L'Artisan Premier Figuier. 1994 green fruity. It's still available. Olivier Jacobetti, fig leaf, galbanum, peach, fig, almond milk, dried fruits, coconut milk, pine needles, and sandalwood. All right, I'll put that on the wish list, man. I know you're a big L'Artisan fan, Dushan. Oud Taiwan, man, I am in love with Oud Taiwan. I'll tell you what. And you know what's funny? There were a couple people who left some comments. One guy, which I ended up just deleting it. I should have left it up there because he was such a moron. But in my Oud Taiwan early impression video, he basically called me a liar. He was like, no way you like that. You know, the way you said you liked it so quickly, you're lying so Russian Atom can sell bottles. And I was like, you sound like a moron, dude, because number one, this sold out in like 10 minutes. They don't need me to lie. Number two, this is after it already sold out. Your argument makes no sense, but he just wouldn't let up. But I was thinking about a little bit of the hate that Oud Taiwan has been getting. And you know what? I think any type of perfumery in this kind of realm should make people feel uncomfortable. There should be a little bit of folks who are offended by it or they don't like it. I think it's like the black smoke that puts people off. They say it smells like a burning kind of tire fire or something like that. And I get there's definitely this burning smoke sensation. Very dark. The black smoke has come out more and more. I mean, look at the dent I put in this for a collection my size. That is a hell of a dent. But I was just thinking about the fact that there's a lot of hate going around for Oud Taiwan. And as a frag head, somebody like me who's kind of into the artisanal scene and wants to smell different things, that's a good thing. So normally when I see a lot of hate, that's a good thing. That's a good sign for me as a perfume lover, because usually you don't want something that everyone's going to like. You know, if you want that, go down to Macy's. Go buy the newest YSL crap that they're putting out. That's the generic, boring stuff you could buy. As an oud lover, you want something that's divisive and challenging, or just as a fragrance lover in general. So yeah, I think Oud Taiwan is a bang, knock it out of the park hit, in my opinion. Scent of the day, Messoud Warrior Sweat. I've never heard of that, man. Lalique Pour Homme, that's a beautiful fragrance. What's up, Buster? Hey, Andy, what's going on, man? Fantastic indeed. What's up? What's up? Welcome to the random Wednesday live stream. So let's kick it off, and I would love y'all's feedback if you think of any other fragrances that should be discussed as we're going about this. So it's going to be 10 perfumers, and the very first thing that pops into my mind as far as kind of their contribution to the fragrance world, what they really, I think, will be left behind or remembered for. And so I cheated a little bit and picked maybe the easiest one of all time to start with, and that's Quentin Bisch. Good old Bisch mode. And Quentin Bisch is known for his use of a ingredient called Akigala wood. And Akigala wood is basically this Givaudan material that they created that is from this fractionated patchouli oil. So it's a I don't know if it's one of those materials that is exclusive. I assume Givaudan still has kind of the exclusive patent or copyright on it or whatever it is, those captive molecules, whatever you want to call it. But basically it's a very, very scratchy, and there's some people who really get put off by Akigala wood. But Quentin Bisch, you really can't talk about him without talking about Akigala wood. I mean, there are some fragrances he created, and I did a Perfumers portfolio video on Quentin Bisch. So lately, I've been kind of going the other route. Instead of expanding kind of what we're talking about, I'm trying to contract it, narrow it down a little bit. So if you want to dive deeper into some of these people, you can go check out the Perfumers portfolio video if there is one. But when I did the one on Quentin Bisch, I said there was a top 9 because I didn't have 10, I didn't think. But actually, one of the fragrances is a Quentin Bisch, although Parfumo doesn't list it, and that's Le Male Essence de Parfum. So he has done some stuff that doesn't have that Akigala wood material, and I do think that this is one of the better Le Male flanker, or at least more interesting Le Male flankers. It's got that osmanthus, which comes across as that fruity, peachy, sort of suede type feel. But I'm a fan. I'm a fan of his work in small doses. It's kind of one of those things where I can explore it. It's not something that I would want to wear every day. It's not. The other thing is, I think a lot of folks who are really big into vintage perfumery, like if you're a big fan of the classics, if you love the Mitsukos and the Rochas Femmes and stuff like that, the Akigala wood sort of overdose in some of his fragrances can smell very scratchy and, you know, not necessarily, how would I describe it? Maybe like a little bit like lowbrow, you know, some people could see it as, you know, like a modern trend that seems a little low class. I've had some perfume lovers tell me Akigala wood seems like, you know, something who's really someone who's not really into perfume would just absolutely love and go crazy for. And he overdoses it in a way where it feels like you're wearing something very modern and different. And the one you have to mention, of course, is Ganymede. Ganymede, which I reviewed. I really struggle with this, but the more I kind of smell it and just occasionally spray it on, and what's crazy is my room will smell like this for days after I spray it on. That goes back to kind of that, you know, how do you want your fragrances to be luxurious or do you want them to be smelled by everyone and be beast mode? And Ganymede is just a perfect representation of that style. And I really think, even though he's obviously done other things, this will be his legacy, his kind of shift. I think Ganymede in these type of fragrances, H24 is an example of this that I would put into this category. You know, I really feel like it kind of took that Bleu de Chanel, Sauvage, modern kind of trend, and Aventus, all that stuff in the early 2010. 2010 was obviously kind of a pivotal year in perfumery, and it's just trying to kind of bring it into the present. You know, it's almost like a link between what was extremely popular and then what will be extremely popular. And now, I mean, Quentin Bisch is, you can't even, you can't imagine how popular the guy is. He is just heavily sought after. He did the new Amouage Guidance 46, I think it was, which I haven't smelled, but I'm not very excited to smell it, I'll tell you that. But this Akigala overdose, go watch my review of Ganymede if you really want to learn some more about it. But I think I mentioned that it's almost like, how do you describe what a flower in space would smell like? You know, imagine trying to smell a flower in the absence of you know, the ability to smell air, right? There's that weird, very futuristic, metallic kind of thing going on here. And it's almost like when you were a kid, did you ever like take one of those tabs off of a Coke can or a soda can and put it under your tongue, and it leaves that kind of metallic, silvery, you know, taste in your mouth? That's a little bit what Ganymede smells like. But I could also see somebody who's very young, you know, an up and coming like football star or, you know, basketball star, or someone who's in their early 20s, you know, wearing something like this and smelling very, very modern. And I think this will be Quentin Bisch's legacy, his use of Akigala wood. I'm still on the fence. I don't own very many of his fragrances, but I still think that I like exploring, if that makes sense. I like kind of exploring what he's putting out. So see what you guys are saying. What's going on, Kevin? Good to see you, man. Hola. Hope everyone is well indeed, Mr. Goodman. Scent of the day, Loon Feline Extract. Yes, in summer. I've never smelled that, Jagjeet. Never smelled it. You have 1,000+ fragrances to smell, but have you revisited Paradise Soil? I think I'm in the minority, but I think it's incredible. Yeah, I sprayed it maybe once after that live stream that I did for Riz Ladore. It's still not my favorite of the collection, but I could totally see coming around to it. I love Quirtus. Yes, me too. Huge fan. Huge fan of Quirtus. Atelier d'Ors Bois Sicard. Welcome, Francesco. Sorry. I've never smelled any of those Atelier d'Ors fragrances, believe it or not. I think I may have a sample or two. You can see my samples row up here, like as people like Bexod, and Angie and Allie and all these beautiful folks who have sent me stuff. It goes up in the top and pushes some of the stuff that was already there to the back. So I think there may be some Atelier d'Ors samples in there, but I just haven't gotten to them yet. 21 Conduit Street. That's actually a really good fragrance for, it's a really good fragrance for, here it is, 21 Conduit Street. It's a really good fragrance for summer and hot weather. If I remember correctly, there was a very interesting rhubarb note in here. Came out in 2020. Yes, rhubarb, lavender, and the grapefruit and bergamot were very well done. The amaretto gives it a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of heft and a little bit of something interesting without just being, you know, too straight up and down classy. But this is a very, this is an interesting take for a niche house. It almost reminds me of a niche version of something like Guerlain Homme, Thierry Vassar's first release for Guerlain. It's interesting stuff. I don't know if I would buy this. Someone actually gave me this bottle for free. I don't know if I would spend my money on this, but I don't mind wearing it every now and then. I'll get around to reviewing it one of these days. 21 Conduit Street. Just Javoy in general as a house, I think, is very, very underrated. Very, very underrated. And I've got, I think, samples of most of the entire line. So maybe we'll do like a Javoy live stream one of these days. H24, nice. I would actually like a bottle of the original EDT, Pat. I've come to like it. What's up, fellow Texan? What's going on, man? I'm in love with Paradise Soil as well. I really love that stuff. We should all stream. We should stream for our team, as Duchan says. Davidoff Zeno. Man, you can't go wrong with Zeno. Zeno is one of the all-time greats. Michel Almarac. And this is a really influential fragrance because I really feel like it kind of led the amber fougere wave that came afterwards. So, you know, you think about things like Heritage and Escadaporum. I really feel like those were influenced by Zeno. And I do think that Zeno has a little bit of Guerlain's kind of vanillic Guerlainade base. As far as Michel Almarac could kind of recreate that anyways, but it's very, very well done. Beautiful. And it has that barbershop kind of heart thing. I love it. YSLY EDP, it's shite. Rich, I think, sent me YSLY. He sent me YSLY Elixir. YSLY Elixir. Terrible name. Elixir? Elixir? I don't know. But apparently it's supposed to be a YSLY with a little bit of oud in it. It's literally one of the worst things I've ever smelled in my life, ever. I made the mistake of actually spraying it on my skin before bed one day, and it was horrible. It was not a good night. Thanks, man. Thanks, Walker. Thanks for being here. What's the most challenging perfume you own? Challenging in, like, it's hard to wear because I don't like it necessarily. That's interesting. I don't know. Because there's a lot of fragrances that I don't like that are challenging to me to wear because I think they're shite. Like Oud for Greatness, Oud for Grimness would be one of those fragrances. I really dislike that stuff. And when I think about how much money they're charging people for Oud for Greatness, it makes me even more mad. But I think excluding stuff like that, I would say one of the fragrances that has been the most challenging for me to come around to that you would think I would absolutely like is this fragrance called Rare Petroleum by Histoire de Parfum. There's this strange combination of aldehydes and ouds. Now, I have come around to it, okay? I don't hate it as much as I disliked it at first, but the combination of aldehydes and ouds almost gives off this slightly fishy thing in the opening to me, and I don't know why. I understand the oud. Maybe there's some civet in here that's also making it pissy, so it's like pissy, fishy kind of thing in the opening. It does get better, and it has grown on me, but that's a challenging one for me, this Rare Petroleum. But I like stuff that challenges me. You know, that's part of the hobby, I think, is kind of growing and wearing different things and exploring new things. That's one of the best part of the hobbies, really, is exploring all these new things that you just, you know, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and there is a lot to learn in the fragrance game. Yes, it is. Yeah. That well, Serge Luton famously uses food coloring or some sort of colorants to color their juice color. So Cher-D, and if you follow the channel, you'll see I reviewed a fragrance called Saracen by Serge Luton. It's a jasmine heavy fragrance. Supposed to be jasmine as black as night, which is a crazy way to describe white jasmine. But Saracen has this kind of purple, almost like radioactive nuclear purple color. And Rich and I were actually talking about this that night after I dropped the review. He was like, it's crazy. Serge Lutens can get away with something like that. Whereas some of these other houses, we talk shit about them if they try to put out, you know, a light pink color or something in their fragrances. But for Serge, it just works. Uncle Serge gets away with stuff like that. But I don't think Adam's doing any colorants. This is the color of everything combined in here. This is just the natural color of the juice. Dark, dark black. Do not get that on a shirt like this. It'll never come out, ever. I got one of his fragrances. I think it was Santal Galore. I think I got Santal Galore on one of my white shirts right here. And I was so pissed off. It wasn't a big deal. More, I wanted to get it out. And I tried and I tried and I scrubbed and I put different things on it. And finally, I put lighter fluid on it. And it actually did dissolve it a little bit. But man, I must have scrubbed for what felt like over a day. And it was just never the same. Let me know if you want some help with the video and audio quality upgrades. I'll help you out. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. There is a description that I put in all of my videos. And so if you go back to my older videos, I have my email address. You can just shoot me a message, Tim, and I'll respond. I appreciate that, man. I know that I probably need some sort of help eventually. Like, it would be cool to have someone to do like a thumbnail here or there, or put the names of the fragrances on the videos or whatever. But I'm not at the point where I want to pay for that yet. So, but I found I got to go easy. Interesting. Yeah. Don't like Ganymede at all. Me either. Ganymede is kind of one of those fragrances that really rubbed me the wrong way. And I did like a 40-minute review on it. I mean, I did an in-depth review on Ganymede and how it made me feel. But I think you still have to give Quentin Bisch. It's one of those fragrances I don't like, but I can objectively from far away say I really do think that's going to be kind of his legacy. Fragrance YouTubers brand, Atrium Fragrance, Mr. Elegance. It's a very classic sheeper with lime, orris rose, and oak moss. Absolutely sweetness and absolutely no sweetness at all. Released in 24. Nice. Never even heard of that, man. Ganymede is fire. I am 24 and I live in a hot tropical monsoon climate. Winter lasts 4 months and 2 months of extreme. Which should I go for? Amouage Silver Oud. Silver Oud. Actually, I'm saying that and I've never even smelled Carlisle, but I always lean Amouage over Parfum de Marly. Most people would probably agree with me. The more beast mode. Yes, that's right. Ganymede just smells like burnt mist on my skin with a mineral. It's definitely minerally. No doubt about that. It's not a scent you want to wear on a hot humid day. Hey, Frank, what's going on, man? Good to see you, brother. Ciao, ciao. It's not super strong on me, but I find Promise not too strong. You find Promise not too strong? Holy Shatita. Lalique Porom. Tested out my bottle of Bortnikov Moss Cologne the last few days. It lasts a good 12 hours on me, and those florals are amazing. Instantly one of my favorites. That's awesome, man. Dmitry Bortnikov does florals like no one else. I'm telling you, he is like naturally gifted when it comes to florals, but sometimes you have to understand his style. I think that's one of the reasons why Musk Habib put some people off for so long, because that huge ylang ylang floral. I did a reference fragrance video, and the ylang ylang and Musk Habib easily made a reference ylang ylang. I think I put that as a reference ylang ylang. Burlington 1819. I have a sample of that somewhere. I'll review it one of these days. One spray of Halston 101 to get to know it more. Uber herbal. Very herbal. Very herbal and aromatic. I really like it. I really appreciate you sharing that bottle with me. I showed it off on my last live stream, but I will show it again. That's the bottle that Frank and his son, Science Bear, pitched in to get me. Halston 101. A rare discontinued. Actually, of all of the Halston fragrances, I think this is probably the unicorn of the bunch. The Halston masculines, anyways. It's so good. So herbal and spicy. I don't know if I've ever smelled a fragrance that does herbal spiciness like this. So I will review this one of these days once I get to wear it and know it more. So yeah, I really appreciate that, man. That's an amazing gift. I'm wearing Ducita Oud Infini. It's a poopy oud, but I like it. Yes, very, very animalic. I reviewed it on the channel, and if you get into the 4, 5, 6 hour dry down, it becomes much more classy. First couple hours of that, though, I mean, it is brutal, fecal, poopy, pissy, whatever you want to call it. A blue oud, a blued. Yikes, indeed. Quentin Bisch did Maison Crivelli Patchouli Magnetic. I've never smelled it, but anything with Quentin Bisch a lot of times is going to be Bisch mode. Okay, so Quentin Bisch was number 1. Number 2 on the list, I picked Bernard Chant. Now, I just randomly started putting perfumers down like 10 minutes before this. So there was not a lot of thought in the progression of this. There's no ranking or anything like that. These are just bam, perfumers that came to my head. So when I think of Bernard Chant, the very first thing that comes to mind for me is his production of 2 things. Number 1 is the Chypre. The way he does Chypres reminds me of almost like, it's like what Roja Dove wishes he was. You know, Roja loves Chypres and claims all this stuff. Bernard Chant is the king of Chypres. The original Aramis, Azure, which my brother Bekzad, who I think is in Uzbekistan on vacation to visit family, sent me this beautiful bottle of Azure Sunshine Cologne Splash, which is just amazing. I can't wait to dive into these. But between Azure, Aramis, Devon, which is a green Chypre, I mean, he's really Chypre / leather Chypres is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Bernard Chant. The other thing is his use of aldehydes. Okay. So if you pull up a lot of his fragrances, you're going to notice that there are aldehydes in the top. Devon's a great example of this. Devon opens up with these amazing aldehydes along with the resinous galbanum and all that good stuff. Okay. And so those are the 2 things that come to mind instantly when I think of Bernard Chant. He is the king of Chypres, and he's done them in so many different ways. So you think about something like Aramis 900. You think about Aromatics Elixir, which is right here. Vintage Aromatics Elixir is absolutely to die for. The way he kind of does these compositions, it's unbelievable. And the mossiness, like if you are kind of new to vintage perfume, do not discount Estee Lauder. I know they don't get modern day Estee Lauder focuses on all the high end stuff. So they focus on the Frederick Malls, you know, and these kind of brands, these high end niche brands that they own that they can charge expensive buku money for these type of bottles. But back in the day, Estee Lauder will surprise you. They put out some unbelievable fragrances, both for men and for women. And Bernard Chant, the other thing when I think about him is he's very famous, at least in my way of thinking, for putting out a fragrance and then sort of putting out another fragrance within a couple of years that is targeted to the opposite sex. So Aramis came out in the early mid 60s, let's say. I think it was like 64 or 66. In 69, they put out Azure. This is marketed towards men. This is marketed towards women. If you smell these 2, you will pick up the similarities, no doubt about it. If you take something like Aramis 900, okay, Aramis 900 came out in 1977. Sorry, 73. 1973, Aramis 900 came out. Okay, it was originally released as a herbal cologne spray, which is a hell of a concentration. Herbal cologne spray. Okay. And I absolutely love this stuff. One of the greatest sort of rose heavy Chypres I think I've ever smelled. That's marketed towards men, Aramis 900. Aromatics Elixir came out in 1971. 1971. So a couple years before Aramis 900, marketed towards women. And there's definitely a similarity between these 2. You could have a blast just kind of comparing Aramis and Azure. I mean, you could just have an absolute blast. You could have a blast comparing something like Devon to something like Alliage, which I absolutely fell in love with. I believe Angie very kindly sent me this little discovery atomizer of vintage Alliage Sport Spray. And you can kind of see the similarities between Devon and these two. So his work is really something. It's really, really something special. And I would urge you, if you're kind of just starting to dip your feet into vintage, or maybe if you're hard into vintage but you just haven't checked out some of these Estee Lauders or Aramis fragrances, do not overlook them. They are some of the best perfumery I've ever smelled in my journey. And Bernard Chant, for me, I would put him on like the Mount Rushmore of perfumers. So that's what I think of for him. The chypras, his style of chypras, and that aldehydic top. And then the way he, even back then, which was very revolutionary, because you have to remember, another example I could give you real quick is JHL. So JHL, all right, and Cinnabar, which is right here. Okay, so the original Cinnabar, obviously Estee Lauder was pissed off at Yves Saint Laurent for putting out Opium, which is right. You can kind of see the top of Opium right back in there, for putting out Opium, because she said it smelled so much like youth do, right? Well, after Opium came out in 77, 78, I think she put out Cinnabar 1 year later, okay? And there's definitely this similarity. Well, her husband, Joseph Henry Lauder, loved this DNA. He loved Opium and he loved Cinnabar, but he was a guy, and guys didn't wear women's fragrances back then. It was not proper. So what they did is Josephine Catapano and Bernard Chant worked together to create him a bespoke fragrance and called it JHL, Joseph Henry Lauder. And if you really pay attention, well, you don't have to even really pay attention. If you just are paying attention, you will see the similarities between these. This is marketed towards men. This is what the vintage presentation looks like. This is marketed towards women. Definite similarities between the two, but he didn't live very long, unfortunately, to get to enjoy this fragrance that was created for him. He died like a year or two after this was created. And so I would, any form you can get these Aramises in, even the new stuff, even though I'm showing the vintage presentation, don't worry about getting the new versions. They're still very well done. There are some differences, especially on the ones like Azure. There are definite differences from what I've smelled. I have a new bottle of Cinnabar right here. So that's the new Cinnabar, okay? And there's definitely differences to the vintage, 100% differences. I'll do a comparison video one day. I think that would make some good content. This is much more floral. It doesn't have as much of that oomph, but you know, they're not using the type of materials that they used back then either. And so that is sort of the other thing when I think about Bernard Chant. I think about how he was ahead of his time in regards to sort of this unisex trend, which ended up coming now. I mean, think about what Amouage did. Amouage used to release for men and for women. Now, even though they have the for men and for women bottle, they just release everything as unisex. Bernard Chant was way ahead of his time, you know, because there's no sex in perfume. There's no only guys can wear this or only girls can wear that. Anyone can wear anything. There are some days that I love very floral fragrances. And I'm sure there are some days that, you know, women love wearing very traditionally masculine fragrances. So that is something Bernard Chant, I think, was very ahead of the curve on, but he did it within the confines of what would be acceptable back then. You know, he would release a fragrance for men, he would release a fragrance for women, and they would definitely have similarities. But you can tell, I mean, he spent time on these fragrances. He put his blood, sweat, and tears into these. He would be on my Mount Rushmore, personally, of perfumers. Let's catch up on some comments. Just ordered a bottle of Michael Kors Vintage based on your rec. Ah, this one, Michael Kors, the tobacco, the suede and tobacco. This one right here. Some beautiful soul from my channel sent me this cap. They said, hey, man, you got a tester of Michael Kors. I noticed I have an extra cap, and he sent it to me. I think that was David. I think David sent that to me. I just recently, the decant that I reviewed Monogram from, the decant that I reviewed Mississippi Medicine from, those all came from him. And he sent me some amazing cigars too at the time. which I think I showed off when I reviewed, was it Bortnikov's Tabak Dore? I think when I reviewed Tabak Dore, I had one of his cigars in my mouth in the thumbnail, but you will dig, Michael. This will be a great example of what vintage, it's crazy because it's not even that long ago, but this is what designer perfumery used to be back in the day. Now this would be in a niche bottle for $300, unfortunately. It's sad. It's sad, but that's the way it's going. I did a review on Enclave. It grew on me a little bit, but I don't really care for it that much. Like, it's not one of the amouages that I would go buy. If you gave me a stipend and said, Ramsey, go buy some amouages, I want a full bottle of Ubar, which I reviewed, the one from 2009. I love that stuff. Go check out my review if you want to learn more about that. I would get Ubar. I would get Memoir Woman. I would get Overture Woman. Those are, I'm sorry. Yes, Memoir Woman, Overture Woman, Ubar are right at the top of my amouage sort of, wish list, if you will. Allie very kindly sent me a decant of amouage Jubilation 25 for women extract, the extract. And I have the, whoops, that's gold. Hang on. Too many fragrances. I have the Eau de Parfum. Okay. This is how they used to kind of send these press, I guess you would call them like these. These are what they would send people like Persolays and Brooklyn Fragrance Lover and stuff like that in these little kind of pouches like this. So they weren't the full bottle presentation. They were like this. But this is a vintage Jubilation for ladies, the Eau de Parfum. But I tried the Extrait. Oh my God, it was amazing. I mean, this is amazing as well. The Extrait was really something though. And I have a full review of Jubilation for women. This is an amazing Chypre. Speaking of Chypres, if you like Diaghilev, if you like those type of old school but modern niche Chypres, check out Jubilation for ladies. So if you gave me an amouage stipend, those kind of more modern amouages like Enclave would be last on the list for me, to be honest with you. There's so much more that I would want to grab before the Fishman destroys amouage even further. My 2 cents. Sorry to sniffle in your ear. Which one would you prefer, Naxos or Alexandria 2? Alexandria 2. Santal Royale, have you changed your mind? No, not a fan of Santal Royale, to be honest with you. The journey is the destination. Yes, that's right. Tell them, Ramsey, how much challenging is Bogway's Mem? Yeah, I've come around to it, though. I'll review those one of these days. Arabian Oud Madawi, 40th. Never smelled that one. Arabian Oud had some that I thought were pretty good, like I think it was called Blue Oud. Yeah, it was called Blue Oud. I really liked Blue Oud. That was Cambodian Oud, Blue Musk, which is probably some sort of synthetic deer musk, and Indian Oud. And I really liked it, but some of the prices are outrageous. And I think they're different from, like, if you're in the Middle East, I don't think Arabian Oud costs anywhere near as much as they charge people in America, like, for example. So if you go to the Arabian Oud US website, the prices are pretty expensive for things like Royal Oud and, excuse me, way too much biryani before I started this video. And so I like Blue Oud. I would have a bottle of Blue Oud, but I wouldn't pay what they're asking for. It's crazy. Okay. Scent of the day, Dior Homme Intense. Nice. All right, we're 38 minutes in. I've done 2 perfumers. So let me try to catch up on the comments real quick, and then we'll knock a couple more out. Taboo was a bit out there for, yeah, that's right. I really like Taboo. The best bergamot. I don't know about that one. I got to think about that. That's a tough one. Enclave reminds me of the dentist. Yeah, that mintiness is, I think I prefer Beach Hut Man. Like, if you're going to go minty amouage, give me Beach Hut Man. I like the night for sure. Overture Man's awesome. One of my all-time favorite. Oh, burnt meat. Burnt meat. Really? Burnt meat. Interesting. Very interesting. I got this beef jerky thing from Oud Taiwan the very first time I tried it. That has subsided though. I don't get the beef jerky thing as much, but I could still kind of see it, this peppery, beefy thing. But man, it's been crazy. All I want to do lately is just wear Russian Adams work. I've been really digging these artisanal fragrances. Promise to not project. That is crazy. I can't believe that. I wonder if it's been tinkered with a little bit, because my bottle of Promise, I mean, I don't even know how to describe how long it lasts. It lasts so long that I like to spray the top of my hand. So like when I'm driving, holding the steering wheel, it doesn't get on it. Or when I'm having my hands down on a desk typing, my wrists aren't, putting the fragrance on the desk. So I like to spray the top of my hands, and literally tucked my shirt in, and the top of my hand touched my pants. After washing the pants a month or two later, I could smell it so strong. When I wore those pants, I had to wear Promise again. That's how strong it was. It was insane. Eternal longevity. Yeah, it's very, very strong. Need to send you a sample of Mr. Elegance. I really think it's something you would enjoy. Thanks, Buster. Appreciate that, man. Wow, Mysterio. Now, there's one I really love. That's probably one of my favorite from that Guerlain Middle Eastern line. I blind buy all my stuff. Carlisle was an early buy. I still don't know anything about perfumes and perfumery. I don't like Carlisle. It's very synthetic. Yeah, I don't think I've smelled Carlisle. I might have a sample somewhere, or it might be whatever they call it, Carlisle Intense, or it might be one of those. Cabochard EDP, that's another beautiful creation. Absolutely. Cabochard, definitely. Thoughts on Bella Versailles? I can't talk to the EDT one, but I reviewed the Pure Parfum on the channel. There's a review. It's a all-time classic. Fragrances like this probably influenced, Maurice Roussel's Musc Ravageur. Since we're just kicking the shit here as just a bunch of perfume lovers, really quick, speaking of Maurice Roussel, I'm going to make an outrageous claim, all right? And Rich Mitch and Jonathan know exactly what I'm about to say, because I wore this to bed yesterday, or 2 days ago. And sometimes I'll wear multiple stuff to bed. Like I'll do one thing here, one thing there, because I have so much to get through. It's impossible without going through them, right? Oh my fucking God, man. This is one of the best discoveries I've had in a long time. This was sent to me, I think, by Angie, and it's called Ispahan from Vez Rocher from 1977. I told Jonathan and Rich Mitch that, and this is a 15 mil. This is what they used to give away for free to people. Speaking of how far we've come, everyone's like, it wasn't that great in the past, blah, blah, blah. No, bullshit. This is what they used to give away as like a freebie for you to try the fragrance. 15 mils and in the shape of the bottle. And now you're lucky to get something like this. I mean, Frederick Malle even goes the extra step in colors. They're atomizers. They're little decanters. But Ispahan, oh my freaking God, man. This fragrance, it's got a little bit of the original opium in it. It's got clove and oriental notes and all that stuff, okay? But it was created in 1977 by Maurice Roussel. And I honestly think there's real ambergris. There's amazing resins like frankincense and tolu balsams and patchoulis and myrrh and cinnamon. Like if you like those oriental spicy, there's something a little fruity, orangey at the top. The orange clove oriental thing will remind you of opium, but it's not opium as much. The resins are much more kind of prominent. Here, Maurice Roussel kind of, it feels like the ingredients are the same, but he cooked it a little bit different. You know what I mean? He went about cooking it different. But I was bowled over. Like I'm honestly ready to proclaim this is the greatest Maurice Roussel creation of all of his stuff. Better than Musc Ravageur, better than 24 Faubourg, better than that Bogart Poron, better than what's that Maurice Roussel that I have, that that Eau de Cologne. Fuck, if I see it, it'll come to me. But I was just better than Quai de Crizia, which came out a couple years later. This is better than that to me. Needless to say, I am taken with this. Very, very taken with Ispahan. So just a little random side note here. Ispahan captured my heart off of one late night wearing. Hospital vibes, and also smells like puke. I could see the blood thing, because sometimes blood can go metallic, you know? There's like a weird metallic aspect of blood, and Ganymede has that metallic, like I described it as that, sort of aluminum feel. There's that aluminum feel. Get the Pure Parfum version. Bit too femme. Michael Jackson wore it. Yes, he did. Ganymede gives me typical hospital. Also, when I use it, yeah, it smells like blood. I can see that. Find it interesting. Some perfumers can make a massive hit and they never get anywhere near that success. Richard Herpen is, yeah, exactly. That's a good shout. Liquid line is some good ones. Ah, interesting. I've never smelled any of those. Mr. Oud Wood himself. Late for class? Yes. Well, it's a random Wednesday, Antonio. That's okay. We reserved your spot right up front. So you have designated parking here at the Ram Fam. I don't think so. I think the Pure Parfum is probably more animalic, but I don't know that. Yeah, someone else will have to answer that. Do you guys have problems detecting a particular note? Can I detect bergamot? Smell Shalimar. Smell Shalimar. Shalimar has like 30% bergamot oil in the top. It's like a blast of bergamot. And it'll give you a great breakdown of what proper bergamot smells like. Wearing Aventus. Very nice. We'll talk about Aventus later on. So we knocked out 2. So the third one, I'm going to go with Francois Demachy. Now, what's the first thing that comes to mind with Francois Demachy, other than the end of his reign at Dior went to shite, okay? All of those Dior Privés he started releasing that smelled like suntan lotion, and I really feel like he was just, fuck it, I'm going to put everything out. I'm retiring. I'm done. Screw this kind of thing. Release it all. But a couple things jump to mind. Number one, the work he did with Jacques Polge on things like Antaeus and, of course, Egoist. Those have to be talked about because Francois Demachy was a big vital part of it. But for some reason, I always link Jacques Polge to those first. Francois Demachy is usually the afterthought. Maybe that's wrong. But when I think of Francois Demachy, and the first thing that comes to mind for me anyways, is the flankers that he did while being at Dior. Specifically, things like Eau Sauvage Parfum, Dior Homme Parfum, and Fahrenheit Absolute, which is my favorite, but also you could say Fahrenheit Parfum. I mean, he was kind of like the Parfum boy for a little bit there. He just took some of the old works and made Parfum versions of them. And to be fair, I really do think that these are some of his best work, especially this. The original Eau Sauvage Parfum with the Myrrh before they replaced it with the LME in the 2017 version. This is absolutely... I hate it when people say, this is niche quality, because that doesn't really mean anything. But in that context of how people say that, this is niche quality scent. This could easily be in the Privé line. In fact, this should have been in the Privé line, probably over some of the stuff that they were putting in the Privé line. So when I think of Francois Demachy, I think of kind of his work with these parfums and flankers that he did. And some of these flankers are amazing. Dior Homme Parfum, I think, is absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if there's a better look at me scent. Like if you're going out and you want girls to kind of pay attention to you and you're in a group of people, this will just cut through everything. And Dior Homme Parfum is, I'm a big fan. It's almost like it has a little bit more of this leathery, maybe even oud. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an oud touch in here, because obviously he was playing with oud in his flankers when he did Absolute. He was also playing with myrrh. His use of myrrh was fantastic. There's myrrh in Fahrenheit Absolute. There's myrrh in Eau Sauvage Parfum, the 2012 version. And so his use of kind of resins and myrrh really sticks out to me. Really sticks out to me. And there's some things that he did for the Privé line that I absolutely love. Like, for example, something like Quercanage. I think Quercanage was amazing. I thought Quercanage was very unique until I smelled Cuir Moresque by Serge Luton. Cuir Moresque definitely influenced Quercanage, okay, in my opinion. So he put out some good stuff in the Privé line as well. But when I think about him as a perfumer, the very first thing that comes to mind is his use of myrrh and some of these, and the flankers, of course. He riffs off of other people's work very, very well. And I know that's something Rich Mitch and I have been saying for years, but I honestly think it's true, you know? Stuff like the kind of boozy, sweeter, more unisex take on Fahrenheit, the Parfum version. He does a very good job riffing off of other people's work. And maybe that's not fair. I know there's some people who love Francois Demachy who say that's not fair, but that's the first thing that kind of pops to mind when I think of him. Ah, Ajay, Santal Galore. I think I'm going to wear that tomorrow. His own brand is awful. Don't like Precious Liquid. I've sampled a few. Interesting. I've worn Taboo, Opium, and Yutu. Yeah, they're amazing. I love wearing those. Yeah, man, I am very blessed. There's no doubt about it. Very, very blessed. I can't always detect every note in a fragrance. I can't think of a single note I can never detect. Yeah, that's a tough one. What's up, Glitch? Tiger Lust. Oh, man, Tiger Lust is phenomenal. It's great in the heat. Others weren't fond of it, but I couldn't have been happier. Fuck them. Fuck them. You're wearing it for you, man. It is amazing. Ferragamo spicy leather. Really? Are you sure? I've never heard anyone else say that. That's interesting. Overture Woman is out of this world. I love it. Which I think is slept on. Journeyman. Yeah, I reviewed Journeyman. I love it. I'm a huge fan. I would not sleep on Journeyman. Recent batch of Diaghilev was a disappointment. That really sucks, man. However, I will tell you this. Allie, who bought a new bottle, she showed me her bottle and said once she got about 30% in, it really started to open up. So Diaghilev may be one of those fragrances, and you can see I've got quite a lot of air in my bottle. Maybe it needs air in the bottle. But hers didn't have the Roja signature, gold signature on the side, which means it's a newer version. And so she said it really opened up once she got some air in it. So don't give up yet on it. Maybe you just need to really wear it and spray away. That is my advice. Oh, wow. There was one. I just saw that there was a package from Angie. I didn't even bother opening yet. I'll mess with this later, but that's cool. That'll be fun. Can't wait for my Sung Pour Homme. Sung Homme, nice. Lapidus Pour Homme. Yeah, Sung Homme's very, very soapy. Those two fragrances could not be polar opposites. Sung Homme is very, very soapy. Very well done. Probably one of the best soapy masculines from the 80s. And Lapidus Pour Homme is the exact opposite. I applied Jubilation 25 yesterday, and my mom asked if I'm going to someone's funeral. What? Overture Woman is Anique Minardo's masterpiece. It is very, very good. Sam, she doesn't like cumin. Thanks for the stream. Glad to catch one. Do you think Iris Silver Mist is full bottle? Ooh, that's a very, very tough question, man. Because when I reviewed Saracen on the channel, which is Serge Lutens, some people consider that one of his masterpieces. For me, no. I would say no. Saracens is not full bottle worthy. Well, it is because it's a Serge is the thing. And I mentioned in that review I did that Rich Mitch says that Serge Lutens exist out of time and space for him, that basically they don't have the same rules. You know, sometimes you'll set money aside. I can only spend this much on this fragrance. That when vintage Serges pop up, you just grab them, you know. Don't even think about it. Just grab them. They exist outside of the rest of your collection. And I agree with what he's saying. And I know exactly what he means by that. But I would personally just wear Haris, which I have, Hermes Haris. I would just wear that. Even though they're not the same, they would scratch the same itch for me. I really think Haris is one of the best value for money iris fragrances I've ever smelled. Okay. So would I spend my hard-earned money on Iris Silver Mist? No, I wouldn't. Am I glad I got to smell it and do a video for you guys, though? Yes, absolutely. That cold iris is very interesting. Serge never disappoints as far as at least being interesting, but that doesn't mean that some of them are not closer to the back of my wish list. And Iris Silver Mist and Saracen are probably two Serges that I would kind of wait on. They would be towards the end. You mean the men's version? Used to own a bottle of Ciao Man with the plastic cap. That one was great. Scent of the Day, Versace versus Uomo. Scent of the Night, Enrico Coveri Pour Homme. 2 I will review on the channel one of these days, Zido. Thanks for sharing. Do you have in your collection Monsieur Jovan? It's discontinued. No, I don't. Somebody, and it was Bexod, very kindly sent me a Jovan, though. And it's called Gambler. And this is pretty freaking cool because it came with a set of cards too, which are over there. But this seems amazing and right up my alley. So you'll be hearing about some of these discontinued Jovans one of these days. There was some great stuff that were considered cheapies, quote unquote, from back in the day. Didn't know the original Yop Homme was a fougere. That's why I love fougere. Scandal Pour Homme was my favorite. The original Yop Homme. I don't know, man. I mean, fougere is a very specific category. I mean, technically anything. I think you could take a fragrance like Koros and say it leans more to the fougere side, but you know, would you put this in the same vein as Duc de Vervennes Extreme or Fougere Royale? No, I mean, maybe, but Yop Homme is just kind of, I think, in its own category almost. Hey, what's up, DL Qualia? Good to see you, man. Ambre Sultan, can't go wrong. The greatest amber. I got Neroli Ultra Noir after watching a review. What do you think? Do you love it as much as I do? Because if you said, Ramsey, you can have one more Guerlain, that's the one I'm getting, man. Thank you, dude. Appreciate that, Uriah. Thanks, man. Christopher is now working for Thameen. It seems that his most creative phrase was, yes. I haven't smelled any of those. I actually reached out to him and said, hey, I'd love to smell some more of your work. I was a huge fan of what you did at Amouage. And he said, yeah, reach out to these guys at Thameen and they'll hook you up. And they just ignored me. But no, I've never smelled any of his work at Thameen. I'd love to. Have you tried Gucci Nobile, Fougere? Yeah, those are more Fougeres to me. Fougere Royale, Gucci Nobile, SAR by Van Cleef and Arpels, Ispahan. Yes, Francis Kirkjohn just released Ispahan, Esprit de Parfum. I saw that. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. How do you feel about Portrait of a Lady? I like it, but the problem is that I like Les Abstraits, La Douleur Exquise better. I think that's more to my taste because it has that rose patchouli, but it also has these Middle Eastern resins, and then it has this Antaeus-like dry down. Whereas Portrait of a Lady focuses much more on the clovey aspects. You know, do I like it? Yes. Do I love it? No. Would I own a bottle? I mean, I would like a pre-Estee Lauder bottle just for the Osmotek Museum I'm building here. But if I had money to put aside and it was between Portrait of a Lady or a vintage bottle of the Night is much more my taste right now. And the Night has a little bit of that Portrait of a Lady rose patchouli feeling to it as well, just with a lot more of that Indian oud. Try Ekran de Fumi. I still haven't smelled that, Robert. Can't wait to try Poseidon. I know I can't wait to try Poseidon either, man. And I can't wait to hear what you think about your bespoke fragrance, brother. Neroli still makes me nauseous. No problem detecting that douche product. Have you tried Neroli Ultra Noir? I would be shocked if you didn't think that was beautiful, Dunk. I liked your own parfum. Wish the oud was amped up. It feels pretty amped up to me, though. I tried some from Dubai House of Fragrance yesterday. Patchouli oud is quite impressive. Never smelled it. Never heard of it. Your Omen 10, thanks for tried some Thomas Cosmala at Dillard's. Not groundbreaking. Never even heard of that. Yeah. I didn't know it was listed as a note. I thought it was one of those imaginary notes. Tiger Lust is the bomb. It is. I would love a gallon of that stuff. Iris Silver Mist. There you go. Some of my favorites, including vintage. All right, let's do the next perfumer here. So next up, we have Guy Robert. Now, Guy Robert made some amazing creations. I grabbed what I think is probably his all-time great and one of the best vintage fragrances that doesn't get given the vintage title very often. I think it gets left out of many vintage talk. And that is the great Amouage Gold Man. You could also use Gold Woman, which I accidentally pulled out earlier. But Amouage Gold, I think, is kind of this culmination of an obsession for Guy Robert. So he did some other amazing things, which we will discuss on the channel. Like I plan on reviewing Equipage pretty soon. I plan on reviewing Gucci, the original Gucci Pour Homme from the 70s, not Gucci Pour Homme from 2003 that Michel Almerac did, but the original kind of Gucci Pour Homme. He did that as well. He did a fragrance called Lasso by Jean Patou, which I have thanks to Andy. So wherever you are, Andy, I appreciate your generosity. But he did Lasso, which is absolutely phenomenal. This, and just look at the color of the juice. It's like this very deep, dark, sort of old school vintage leathery creation. This is the Pure Parfum too. And it is, oh my God, it's so unbelievable. So he did a lot of stuff like this, but Guy Robert was, he had an obsession. He had a favorite fragrance, okay? And his favorite fragrance was this. His favorite fragrance was Arpège, which is basically this aldehydic floral, okay? So, and one of the greatest aldehydic florals of all time, by the way. This is the extract. This is like one of the greatest floral fragrances I've ever smelled in my life, ever. Of all the stuff I've smelled, this is special juice. And I think Guy Robert realized that. And I think he had an obsession to sort of try and recreate Arpège in his own way, okay? He wanted to recreate it for the modern times, okay? That's the way that I see Guy Robert's kind of trajectory of some of the stuff he made. So, for example, if you take something like Kalesh, okay? If you take Kalesh by Hermes, you'll definitely see this trajectory I'm talking about. And if you continue on that trajectory, you'll arrive at Gold Man and Woman. But I prefer the men's version because I've worn it so much. You know, I put a pretty good dent in that. For my size collection, that may not look like a lot, but that's a pretty good size dent in a fragrance you need like 1 or 2 sprays of. So as far as like elegance and, you know, yes, there are some resins in here, but the powdery florals and the decadence of Gold Man comes straight from Arpège. And that's what I really think of when I think of Guy Robert. Now, obviously, he came from an amazing perfume family. You know, he had family members who were in the industry for years and years, if not generations. You know, Henri Robert is very, very famous perfumer. But for Guy Robert, you know, for something that came out in 1983, Amouage Gold, the first Amouage, doesn't get recognized as like a vintage fragrance, but it is, and it's a beautiful one. And I really think this is his masterpiece. This is his masterpiece. Don't listen to, for the fragrance lovers, you know, for the average chap on the street, this may be a very, very tough wear. In fact, many men would probably consider this too feminine, but for the fragrance lovers, don't listen to the folks that say, oh, it smells like piss or a dirty diaper. Don't listen to them. Everything you hear and read about this online is crap. You go to Fragrantica and read some of the comments. You can't believe that stuff. You have to try it for yourself. So Gold Man is like this culmination of this amazing aldehydic floral. Unbelievable. Just finished moving into a new apartment. That's awesome, dude. Thanks. Congrats, Sean. I despise moving. I would rather eat dirt than move. So congratulations. Take a load off, sit down, relax. What's up, Dushan? But I'm going to somehow steal every single fragrance you have. Well, you can't steal it. I won't allow that. But you can use my knowledge to maybe acquire your own, sir. I bought another bottle of Iris Silver Mist today. Damn. A backup of a backup? Or how many do you have? Curious if you have smelled the recent Caron scents. No, I have not. Caron's one of those houses that I really feel like fell off. You know, like they're YSL and Caron and those type of houses, I really feel like hit the wall. Really fell off. Really disappointed. Quirtus was my first artisanal. I'm not going back. Everything else so freaking boring. And since then, I've not bought anything from my prior wish list. Yes, it really is. You know, when you wear some of these artisanal fragrances, it is like a completely different rabbit hole. You know, you've got the vintage rabbit hole, you've got the artisanal rabbit hole, you've got the discontinued designer rabbit hole. I mean, there's a lot of different rabbit holes to go down. The niche rabbit hole, and so artisanal is a completely different sort of ball game, though, and you'll find yourself, you know, craving wearing an Aris Ladore or Bortnikov or an Ensar, and just nothing else will work, even on October 7th in the 100-degree heat. I work where it is today. Fuck it, to work. So, you know, sometimes that's how it goes. Wearing the last few drops of Mysterious Oud. Ooh, a beautiful Oriental Oud, Babush. Good to see you, man. Cole Simer, what's up? 15 vintage Serge Lutons, and I have a Chergui on the way. Love you, Rich Mitch. Thanks, man. Yeah, Chergui is amazing, and it's great for fall. Once you get Chergui in, as it turns into September and October, wear it. Wear it, especially around Halloween time. Wear Chergui. It's so perfect with that hay, that iris, the tobacco. Oh, fuck. I can't wait for fall just to wear this. And fall's my favorite time of year, or autumn. Quirtus is great. I still prefer Cuir de Russie. I still prefer Cuir de Russie too, but I don't have a bottle. But if I had a choice, I would pick Cuir de Russie. That's I revisited it recently since I reviewed Anna's Warringkina's Cuir de Russie, and Russian Adams is just, I mean, for my taste and what I'm loving now, I don't think I have or ever will come across a Cuir de Russie that does it so perfect. His use of animalics and that beaver tail oil, phenomenal. Which to get first, Cuir Moresque or Cuir Ottoman? Cuir Moresque. Cuir Moresque. Yeah, Cuir Ottoman's good, but Cuir Ottoman is almost like a poor man's sort of Great Britain. I would go Cuir Moresque. Cuir Moresque is one of the best leather fragrances I've ever smelled. You and Ram both said Cuir de Russie is better, but I'm just buying what I... Oh, no, you have to. Yeah, no, you have to, especially with those artisanal brands, you have to get what you can get when you can get them. That's what makes it so tough. That's, if there was one downside, that's it. I wish you could just go on there and click buy and there's enough bottles for everybody and all that stuff. But I mean, when you're using oud, like Oud Taiwan's a great example of this. When you're using oud, and when you're using an oud, real oud, not some Simrise or Givaudan or IFF oud substitute, right? But you're using real oud, and you're using some rare oud like Oud Taiwan. Adam was telling me, he's like, Ramsey, I've been an oud lover for however long it's been. I've never smelled an oud from Taiwan ever in my entire life. And so bringing to light some of these rare type of ingredients for the world to smell, obviously it's going to be limited. It's just the reality of the situation. If there's 100 bottles, 200 bottles, whatever it is, that's it. You know, it's, it'll never be like the way that the big money making, I call them the money making houses, because they're there for the money first. The perfume is second. It's the money first. And the fact that you can just walk into any Macy's and buy the bottle and it smells the same and all that stuff, you'll never get that with the artisanal world. Cosi Blue Pantheon Roma is pretty good. Never smelled it. Still on the way. I'll let you know. Thanks, man. I would love to. I don't have any of hope, but if I get some, I'll review it. My Poseidon's on the way. Ah, congrats, Glitch. Congrats, man. I cannot wait to smell Poseidon. Hopefully it's here in the next week or so. Vintage Jaguar for Men. Never smelled that, but I really want to. I hear it's a pretty good fougere. Wore Oud de Grain the other day after letting it sit a few months. Man, that stuff is beautiful. The epitome of jasmine. I 100% agree. 100% agree. I'm so glad that I was able to get a bottle of that. I'm really taken with that. I think it's one of the best jasmines. Interesting to hear your recommendations where I could go after Zeno, Heritage, Beau de Jour. Struggle with the Soap Moss vintages. Not sure they are my taste. I would go Heritage. Go Heritage. You know, if you want to stay in that realm, or if you want to hunt down something hard to find, go with Escada Porome. Escada Porome EDT. Olivier Creed, what made him famous? Pierre Bourdon. Oh, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Okay, so next on the list, we have Pierre Bourdon, and I'll write their names in the description, but Pierre Bourdon made a couple of my all-time favorite fragrances. Most notably, he made Hugo Boss No. 1 from 1985. And I did a Vintage Hall of Fame review on this. This is one of my favorite honey fragrances of all time. One of my many bottles. This is the one I try not to spray because I'm trying to leave it unsprayed. Although I think I have sprayed this before. My other bottle is much more used. My God, man, smelling this. Fuck. I must have sprayed this because I can smell it pretty strong. So when I think of Pierre Bourdon, two things come to mind. Okay. The first is this. And if we go sort of chronologically, in 1983, what year was it? It was Drakkar Noir 82. So in 1982, Pierre Bourdon made Drakkar Noir, which sort of became, if you kind of listen to me discuss the 1980s as a decade, okay, many people think of the hardcore fragrances that came out in the 80s, Koros, Antaeus, these type of sort of 80s hardcore animalic, right? Very, think of the big hair in the 80s and all the crazy wacky stuff that was going on, okay? But very early on in the 80s, it started to shift. You know, some tastes really began to go away to rebel against those heavier animalic type creations, okay? And this is sort of the fragrance that really epitomized the shift. In fact, it epitomized the shift so much that when Pierre Bourdon made Cool Water, he said it was very, very important for him to create a fragrance that represented this sort of new freshness without smelling like Drakkar Noir. Drakkar Noir was such a legend, such a titan, that Pierre Bourdon named it by name. He said when he was creating Cool Water, he wanted it to be far enough away from Drakkar Noir where no one could say you copied Drakkar Noir. That was very important to him. And the reason is that Drakkar Noir uses a note called dihydromercenol. And dihydromercenol was used a decade or 15 or maybe even 20 years before this. You started to get little bits and pieces of dihydromercenol in the great Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, my father's signature scent, even to this day. And as much as I love this, this is his fragrance through and through. I mean, I will wear it from time to time, but this is the smell of dad to me. And so there's a little bit of dihydromercenol in here, but Pierre Bourdon really amped it up in Drakkar Noir. And so you get that lavender, artemisia, lemon vervain, kind of spicy, woody freshness, though. And the freshness here is what really sort of epitomized the shift to freshness. So Pierre Bourdon for me is two things. He's bringing on the dihydromercenol blast, which some people don't like. I actually like this. I don't think I like it enough to call it like a masterpiece or anything. I don't put it up there with the Antaeuses and the Bellamy's and all that stuff, but I do like it. It's a vintage fragrance that is very important in what it does and what it did. And then this honey type creation that he made for Hugo Boss, and he used it a couple different times. He actually used it again in a fragrance that gets very little talk called Tenere. But Tenere pulls in much more florals because it was the late 80s by this time, and the floral craze was really in full swing. Many masculine fragrances pulled in lots of florals towards the end of the 80s. But he used kind of this very impressive animalic honey, which I broke down in a lot of detail in my Vintage Hall of Fame review of Hugo Boss #1. Which the older bottles didn't even say #1 because there was only one Hugo Boss for men back then, and this was the first one. And so when I think of Pierre Bourdon, I think of the dihydromercenol kind of freshness, and I think of that honeyed creation from the mid to late 80s that I've never smelled any honey creation like this. The way he used the honey notes, for me, one of the all-time greats. Absolutely. And this is a top 10 fragrance for me. Top 10. This could be a signature scent. I could wear this year round. I mean, this has my name written all over it. So, yes. Try Smoke Moss frags. Yeah, exactly. Try Smoke Moss. Goldman smells like an 80s salon with ladies on the big hair dryer. Olivier Creates Baron Minhausen. $340 is so expensive. It's $240 here when it's available, and even that is pushing it. Serge knows his prices. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Just tuned in and saw Frederick Maul mentioned, so a bit of a non sequitur, but really, really hoping they re-release Dries Van Noten. Me too. I would love a bottle of that. I've never smelled it. I know some people really rate it, like this kind of creamy sandalwood thing. Rich Mitch says it smells like baby throw up. I've never smelled it, but can't get that out of my head from what he says. So we'll see. Hey, what's going on, John? Thanks for tuning in, man. Every time I spray Cuir de Russie on garment, but it always ends up on my skin. That blasted skin, man. It's like you're trying to spray it on garment and your hand just no. And that's the comment I was looking for, Ajay. I'm curious on how people like Geranium Pour Monsieur. Geranium Pour Monsieur is interesting. because we'll talk about it when we get to Dominique Ropion. We'll definitely talk about it. It's the mint is, I think, where people kind of draw the line. Some people like it, some people don't. Log in YouTube for my garage to listen to music, to find Ram live. Hey, what's going on, BTVM? Thanks for being here. Paris Monte Carlo, Rose de Mai. Never smelled it. One of my friends' dad bathed in that back in the day. I can't lie. Bathing in perfume sounds damn good to me. I am wearing Rose de Taif. Just arrived today. Congrats. Is it the X-Ray? I really like the X-Ray. Polo Green was my junior high scent in Dracar Noir all through high school. Hell yeah, man. I would take Polo Green over Dracar, but you can't go wrong with either. Van Gil Strictly for Men was also made by Pierre Bourdon, Old School Cedar. I've not smelled that one yet, believe it or not. But I'm a big fan of his work, so I'm thinking I would like it. Yes, he also did La Nuit de l'Homme, which I'm not as big of a fan of, but, you know, he also did this, which is very underrated. It's called Antidote by Viktor and Rolf. I think it's the best fragrance Viktor and Rolf ever put out, ever. This is supposed to be the antidote for the boring men's fragrance, but it has a little bit of everything in it. Oh, yeah. It's got spices, woods. Smells like it has some iris in here. It has citruses and florals. Many florals in here. And so that's the thing. Sometimes it can smell slightly smoky. Sometimes it can smell slightly soapy. Sometimes it can smell floral, citrusy, woody. It feels like it's got all of these different variables, but you really have to give this time. I think if you just spray it and smell it, you'll go, You know, you won't really, I don't think, understand the complexity of this for a designer. Very well done. And of course, Pierre Bourdon, to me, is a master. I mean, he's one of the all-time greats. Burning Barbershop, so good. What are your sandalwood? What are great sandalwood? Bois d'Azil. Santal Noble, which I have a sample set of Maitre Parfumé Gantier thanks to Rich Mitch, and I've been loving Santal Noble. Santal Noble is absolutely, like, if I could add one more sandalwood fragrance, I think it would be Santal Noble. But you know what I'm going to say. If you want a sandalwood, one of the most badass sandalwood fragrances I've ever smelled, get Santal Galore by Aries Ladore. That fragrance is, I might wear that tomorrow. Actually, I might wear that to work tomorrow. Yeah, it's a nice cardamom. I just don't think it's anything special, personally. I've smelled different versions of it, and people are like, oh, you got to get the vintage La Nuit de l'Homme. Like, vintage La Nuit de l'Homme? I don't know, man. I mean, for me, like, I have this, so there's a little bit of similarity, I think, for Arpege, Lanvin's, oh, fuck. I can never, ever remember the name to this one. It's called Avant-Garde from 2011. And this has some La Nuit de l'Homme cardamom, but this is much more, there's some beeswax in here. I actually like this more. Shayamala Mason did this. And there were actually a couple of Jeremy fragrance recommendations that were good. This was a good one at the time. The other one he made that very few people discuss nowadays, and I'm going to review. They're both discontinued, unfortunately, but I honestly think these are two of Jeremy Fragrance's greatest recommendations. This is called Jacques Fat pour l'Homme. You want the older bottle with the big fat sticker and the cap that looks like mine, not the gunmetal cap. And this, which for a designer is badass. The only thing that sucks about it is the bottle leaks. It's a really shitty design, but I love this stuff. For a designer, I mean, you know, it's got the sweetness of a designer and stuff like that, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Not a bad sandalwood. Couldn't believe quality of 1927 Henri Bendelmont Jasmine vintage. Any vintage I smell, I swear to God, I smell these vintages and I'm like bowled over. That's how I felt about Ispahan. I'm telling you, this is the greatest. I'm not just bullshitting you. This is 100% my feeling. This is the greatest Maurice Roussel fragrance I've ever smelled. Ispahan. Rachel, I know you're a huge Maurice Roussel fan. You need you need to sniff this out if you're out there. I haven't seen you in a while, so I hope you're well. But yes, as a Maurice Roussel lover, I would urge you to try Ispahan. God, the texture of it, you know, it's like, that's the thing about vintage fragrances. I think that really gets people is the depth and the texture just cannot be recreated nowadays. You know, the oak moss ban and all the stuff they've taken away, Lirol ban, you know, all that stuff they've taken away has really hurt the perfumers. And yes, they can replace it with new modern stuff, but the new modern stuff a lot of times has this ridiculously long, dry down, sort of droning amberwood feel that just doesn't have the elegance from the past. Just doesn't. Eight and Bob Egypt. I heard that. I've never smelled it. Hey, Anuj, what's up, man? Is highly overrated. I'll put Fiji and even Jai Osei above it. Jai, I think I might have bottles or at least samples. I know I have a bottle of Fiji thanks to Ali. Jai Osei, I'll have to look around. I might have a sample of that. You would compare Fiji to Drakkar Noir. Interesting. I'm gonna have to go check those out later and compare, Anuj. Always love seeing you, brother. Because no one has ever been able to clone it. What? Really? Interesting. Bois de Zeal, Santal Noble, Trey. Yes, the fantastic Rex right there. Journeyman is better car. I great take. I 100% agree. I'll take Journeyman over La Nuit de l'Homme anytime. Malto Smalto, that's a great shout too, Duchamp. Malto Smalto. Yeah, Malto Smalto is a great shout. The Mysore Sandalwood in Patu Poron. I know you're going to be like, fuck you, Ramsey. It's $1,000 a bottle now, but it wasn't when it came out. It was 20, 30 bucks, 40 bucks, whatever it was, for Jean Patou. I mean, you know, that's Patou Porom and Patou Porom Privé are two of my favorite sandalwoods. Fuck Dua. Anuj, I hear you. Another friend from the community likens it to bad socks. And now we can forge vintage Samsara. And of course, Samsara. I mean, you don't even have to say it. It just looms over the sandalwood conversation. What's going on, A2? Good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well, man. All right, next on the list, we have Dominique Ropillon. Now, Dominique Ropillon, I really struggled to discuss because he's done so much and over such a wide variety. Like someone earlier mentioned, Geranium Pour Monsieur. And this is one of, I mean, probably one of the easiest summer Frederic Malls to wear because of that minty sort of freshness. But then again, he's also done stuff like Promise. So, I mean, he's all over the place, you know. He's done Promise, which I absolutely love. And I've reviewed Promise on the channel. I will review Geranium Pour Monsieur one of these days. And so his sort of portfolio of what he's made to me is like all over the place. And so it's very hard to kind of judge Dominique Ropillon. I mean, we were just talking about La Nuit de l'Homme. Dominique Ropillon's listed on there with Pierre Wargnac. So he's all over the place. You know, Portrait of a Lady is probably the one most people would pick out and say that rose patchouli, and I've got a sample somewhere, so maybe one of these days I can review it. But I mean, he's done things like Vetiver Extraordinaire, which is an amazing take on vetiver, proper up and down vetiver. And so when I thought of Dominique Ropillon, the very first thing that came to mind for me is that I know he likes opera and I know he likes music. He might even write music. From one of the interviews that I saw. I think someone said he writes music. Dominique Ropillon, I see him as like a symphony conductor, you know? Like imagine like a conductor of the orchestra. I imagine Dominique Ropillon as like this technician, you know? Like you write music, you write very specific notes, right? The person playing it is supposed to be able to recreate those notes. When he writes a perfume formula, I almost see him as just like this technician. That's the very first thing that came to mind with Dominique Ropillon. His works seem like you're wearing this symphony of notes. And he kind of, what he's done for me is he's taken something that is an art. I mean, because perfumery is an art. It's an art form. It's the reason we love fragrances. It's art in a bottle, right? And he's turned it into a science. He's taken an art and he's turned it into a science. He is the technician to me. And I've reviewed some of his work on the channel. I have reviewed Vetiver Extraordinaire, a very, very interesting, spicy vetiver. I've reviewed The Night very recently. I reviewed Promise very recently. So I've reviewed some of his work on the channel. Dominique Ropion is, even through all of these different fragrance styles, no one note stands out. Like, I can't say Dominique Ropion is known for this. Like I said, you'd probably say maybe that rose patchouli combination, but I really think that Antoine Lee has him beat in the rose patchouli combination with Les Abstraits, La Douleur Exquise. I just do. And I've reviewed that on the channel as well. But what I meant is that among Guy Laroche fragrances. I got you. I got you. Yes, I could totally see that. Yes, I could totally see that. Totally. Although as far as flankers go, this may be one of the best-selling flankers of all time. Most people don't know that Drakkar Noir is a flanker of Drakkar. And I think Drakkar came out in like 1970 or something. I've never smelled the original Drakkar. But I think this is probably one of the most successful flankers of all time. So successful, most people don't even know it's a flanker. So that's interesting. We still don't know if Ropion created Teatro alla Scala. No, I know. That's just a guess that I had, because he created so many fragrances that you would smell and just think, man, you smell something like the reason that I thought he created Teatro alla Scala. I'll tell you why. Because he created this. He created this fragrance by Givenchy called Satis de Givenchy. And this and Teatro alla Scala definitely share some similarities, but there are a lot of fragrances from that time that share these similarities. But man, the depth and the richness, this is so good. One of my favorite 80s fragrances for marketed towards women, Satis de Givenchy. These vintage bottles. Anuj might actually have some Satis floating around. So yeah, Dominique Ropion is he's the technician, you know. That's the thing that really comes to mind. Well, that's Maurice Roussel, but yeah, I mentioned Maurice Roussel. I was saying I think Ispahan is actually better. I think Ispahan is Maurice Roussel's best work. Most people say Musc Ravageur. After smelling Ispahan by Vez Rocher, I'm going to say Ispahan is his greatest work. And I know this may be hard to find because it's discontinued, but fuck, I was bowled over by that. The only Dominique Ropion fragrance is Nishani's Hachivat Oud. I've never smelled it. Didn't even know it was him that formulated it until I went to his catalog. Yeah, he's got a massive catalog, mate. Massive. Ah, Noah, what's up, man? I'm excited for your blind sniff. I can't wait. Can't wait to smell that. Noah in the house. Got your Poseidon yet? Excellent point. Poseidon still in customs limbo. I can't wait to get Poseidon, man. Cannot wait. Finally got Bornikov Lao Oud. So good. All right. Glad to hear it, Mr. Constantino. Glad to hear it. Were you the one who was debating between Oud Maximus or Lao Oud? Either way, I'm glad you're happy. I love Lao Oud. I think it's turned into my favorite Bornikov. Carnal Flower is another good one, but I don't like the camphoraceous aspect. Like, I know patchouli, tuberose can have camphoraceous aspects, but I don't care for it as much. But I mean, you have to give it a shout out. It's a reference patchouli. Ajay, did you get yours? Drakkar Noir filled the spot Sauvage does now. Yes, I would agree with that. Drakkar Noir was the Sauvage of the 80s. It absolutely was 100%. That's a great shout. Costume National Homme Parfum. Yes, I actually reviewed that one on the channel as well. That is very underrated. Amazing fragrance. To Garnier's Opera in Paris. Yeah, that would be cool. On its way to the U.S. now. It should clear customs. Man, I can't wait for Poseidon. It's funny because Rich Mitch and I were having this conversation the other day. He was like, man, where do I go next? Like, what's going to get me excited? Like, there's very little that I've been excited about what's new coming out. And I agree. I mean, if you're just like waiting for Guerlain's new offerings and stuff like that, you will be disappointed, right? But for me, I was telling him the artisanal space, things like the new Oud Taiwan, the new Poseidon, or Ensar's new work or whatever, that's been the stuff I've been most interested about. Honestly, for me, like going to the designers, I'd rather go back in time and get to know, like, this is a Koros flanker called Koros Fresh Air, which has a little bit of a pineapple feeling to it, and very kindly sent to me by Angie. And you know, I would, if I'm going to go to the designers, the new stuff, there's nothing coming out that really interests me at all. They're not targeting fragrances to people like us. They're targeting them to the masses. So you got to either go back in time or go the artisanal route. And it's been the artisanal route that has really been, that's why I've been so excited about trying some of this new stuff. So yes, no, he's not going to be in this video, but I will do a part 2. I will do a part 2. Actually, I could probably do like part 3, 4, 5 of this video eventually. Kenzo Jungle. Yeah, that's another really good one. Another really good one. 5 o'clock Ocean Jambra. That's probably my favorite tea scent of all time. You know, Christopher Sheldrake's a master. Yes, I got both of them along with Sayat Nova and Lyric Skis. Yeah, Lyric Skis is really good. Yes, Drakkar Noir is definitely the Sauvage. I remember around me it taking Tommy EDT and Polo Sport to dislodge Drakkar Noir. That's awesome. If only Drakkar Noir kept the patchouli. Yeah, they said only the very earliest bottles had patchouli in it. I only have 3 Bortnikov's. Loud is awesome. My favorite of the 3 of Tabak Dory as well. It's mouthwatering, so delicious. Edible, smelling tobacco. Yeah, if I could add one tobacco fragrance to the collection, it would be Tabak Dory. I really think Tabak Dory is probably the best tobacco I don't have in my collection. Just picked up a vintage Homme de Grey for a great price after the Duck's massive praise. Yes, Homme de Grey is fantastic. It is a Gerard Anthony. It's one of those fragrances that smells like it came from the 1960s or 70s instead of the 90s. It's crazy. You know, it's kind of like I could imagine some old timers in the 90s wearing this that didn't like some of the stuff that came out in the 90s, you know, like they were talking shit about Amen and stuff like that. And, you know, Yelp Om and all that with the pink juice. They're like, no, we got to wear something classic. That's the type of guy who would wear Homme de Grey. But it's a Gerard Anthony. I mean, you cannot go wrong. You cannot go wrong with Gerard Anthony. The guy is one of the all-time greats. I have not tried Dorian Fougere, but I've heard some amazing things about it. There you go. Dorian Fougere is outstanding. I should get a decant of Dorian Fougere. Just ordered my bottle after putting it off, along with bottles of Fête de Noël, which is just freaking gorgeous. Yeah, I like Darren Allen's work, man. Really like Darren Allen's work. I reviewed it on the channel. It's a really well done, heavy labdanum type smell, but with, you know, the brand itself of Tiziano Terenzi makes very beast mode, long lasting, lots of ouds and liqueur notes and all that stuff in there. Honestly, if you're going after the labdanum, okay, I would probably just tell you to go buy Le Lion by Chanel. They're 2 different fragrances, but in my opinion, Le Lion's the greatest labdanum ever created. Le Lion, there's also a fragrance by the Zoo, which is a smaller house, but it's called Everlasting. I reviewed it on the channel. It's this huge labdanum with a little bit of like daffodil in it. But it's a beautiful fragrance. If you like that labdanum overdose, which I absolutely love, check that out. You could also try to go for something like this. This is La Couche du Diable. I'll review this on the channel one of these days too. The Devil's Bed Sheets or something like that. But La Couche du Diable is basically labdanum and oud. So here you get this combination of labdanum and oud. But I mean, you can't go wrong with Ladano Nero. I just think of all of the labdanum fragrances that I mentioned, Ladano Nero would probably be towards the back of the ones of the one that I would pick, just because of the fact that it does smell like there's definitely some amber woody materials in there, which, you know, Serge Luton, Chanel. Those are going to be a little higher class. If you don't mind some of that amber woody feeling from time to time, especially late into the dry down, Ladano Nero lasts forever. I think it's a really good fragrance, but Tiziana Terenzi as a brand seems to go more for power and beast mode and projection and all that stuff rather than, the classic sway of the fragrance and letting it kind of unfold naturally and stuff like that. Also got 10 mils of Hecate Devil's Share After the Rain, Sheeper #1. I just love Darren's work. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Darren's work. I should have him on the channel one of these days. One more for Dorian's Fougere. That's where I got my oak moss. I could literally just wear the oak moss. That's awesome. I can't wait to smell that one day. Been enjoying Santos de Cartier Concentré. I've never smelled the Concentré. Rekindled interest in fragrances. Well, if you're rekindling your interest on stuff like that, Rich and I are doing our jobs, honestly. As long as you're not going out there and spending $500 on the newest Parfum de Marly or Initio fragrance, we're doing our jobs, man. Oak Moss from Darren Allen. That's right. Ted Lapidus Pour Homme is beast mode. Yes, it is. But not in the way of modern beast mode. Like I was mentioning some of Tiziana Terenzi's scents being beast mode. Never in my life did I spray an 80s fragrance and it get on my clothes and I smell it, 2 months later. Never, ever. Stuff like Promise where you smell it 2 months later on your clothes, that never happened in the 80s. So even though they were beast mode, even though they were powerhouse scents, the materials that they were using from the oil houses were totally different. And I much prefer the way they used to do it back in the day to now, personally. Agree with Leon. Everlasting from the Zoo. Cannot find it anywhere, sadly. I heard the Zoo may be going through some hard times. Maybe that's why. But keep looking. It's out there. It's just, I heard the Zoo may be going through some rough times. I don't know if they're going to stay open or not. But yeah, if you find it and you're a labdanum lover. Oh, another one is Tom Ford Sahara Noir, but that's another discontinued. I would love a bottle of Sahara Noir. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for thank you for the super chat. Very, very kind of you. I never ask, but they're always appreciated, really. Has this fizzy, crisp feeling without smelling light or fresh. I really, really like the labdanum and oud in here. It's probably one of Serge Lutens' greatest, newer fragrances. Although I haven't tried the Écrine de Fumée everyone was talking about earlier. But there was a fragrance that came out a year or so before this called La Participe Passé, I think, or something like that. And I really enjoyed that too. So between this, La Participe Passé, and if the new Surge everyone was talking about is good, it really does feel like Serge Lutens is back. Went through a phase where it kind of dipped, and some of the stuff they were releasing just didn't feel like Surge, like proper Uncle Serge. But now it feels like they're back. Why do you say not to buy Parfums de Marly? I just don't like the brand. Yeah, I just don't like the brand personally. It's just my opinion. I have some. I'm not, and I bought them. They weren't sent to me for free. So like I've got Leighton and I've got Herod, and this I got them for very fair prices, like $100 each, right? For 75 mils or whatever it is not too shabby at all. But now, the prices have continuously gone up. And this type of perfumery just doesn't do it for me any longer. Okay. That's the thing, is it doesn't do it for me any longer. I like Herod. Sometimes I crave wearing Herod in the winter. Leighton's, I don't know. Maybe I'll get around to reviewing them one of these days. But yeah, it's not a brand. Just like Initio is a brand I don't like. Parfums de Marly is a brand I don't like. Had a power outage and missed most of this. Oh, man, well, welcome back. Glad you're back. You got a lot to watch later on. The only Parfum de Marly. I like Herod. Yeah. I appreciate, too, the composition of Darien's Fougere. In fact, the best Fougere I wore is the best Fougere, really. I missed most of this afternoon. To the Ramen community, Rien Intense Incense. That's an amazing fragrance as well. Thank you, man. Appreciate that, AM. Very, very kind of you. No, we don't do clones here, brother. No. No, you're in the wrong place for clones. You're in the wrong place. Yeah, they're mass appealing. They really are. Like, I guess if you were going to go to like a college bar and you wanted to blend in with all the hunk college boys or something, you could wear Leighton or Herod. It's just very rare. Like, I never crave wearing them anymore. I have them for the museum, but I don't crave them like I crave the Aries Ladores I was talking about earlier. Is Outremmer. Outremar. I had to read that. It looks like Outremmer. Their cola has fizzy cola vibe, gummy scent, quite affordable. Interesting. I'll give a quick shout out to a random guy from the website Oud Dict, like Oud Addict, but Oud Dict. He sent me some of his work, and he's like a maybe up and coming perfumer, but he sent me some. He had one called Cola Civet. Tobacco Spice is the one I tried yesterday. Yeah, Civet Cola. So if you go to ouddict.com, Ouddict, his name is El Khalid, Elkhaldi, El Khalidi. And he sells these. They're his creations, real musk, real ouds, all stuff like that. So he's trying to kind of do the Russian Atom thing up and coming. But he's a small one-off kind of, with the naturals and stuff like that, and he does his own blending. But I was pretty impressed. Everything I've smelled has been very competent. The Civet Cola was almost more like a orange Fanta-y feel, but you could get a sense of what smelled like real Civet. The Musk Melange was very, very impressive. Very impressive work. The spices just pop. So it's cool. I mean, it's cool. Kind of, there's so many little underground pieces here and there, and so many different works to get to know, and it's kind of cool. It's such a great community, honestly. That Grin de Fumé is nice. That's the one people were talking about. I've never smelled it. I fucking despise Haltane. Oud for Greatness and Haltane are, oh God. I mean, they're just, and the fact that people pay $400 for that is what really, really grinds my gears. Really grinds my gears. Hopefully no one here will do that anymore now that you've been enlightened. It's like when you're asleep and someone turns on the light and you're like, I don't want to see. It's like you don't want to look at the light, but the light is you're being enlightened. Do not buy that. I have to say, I really like Haltane. The Ram Ruined Haltane. I really like Haltane. You can like what you like. I fucking despise that stuff. You'll be the best smelling man on your street. Guilty pleasure video coming soon. I did a guilty pleasure video already, actually. Just need a touch of drama inferno. But can you smell them all? That would take a decade. Dante Alighieri is lurking. Dante haunts those who put pineapple on pizza. Yes. How late am I? An hour and 43 minutes late. Let's do the next perfumer. So next on the list was Anne Filippo. Now, Anne Filippo is a perfumer who the very first thing that should probably come to your mind, very first thing, is floral fragrances. She was very well known for her understanding of different florals, especially like kind of wildflower florals and green notes. Okay. So I remember Frederick Malle specifically approached her to create a green floral fragrance called Synthetic Jungle. And they actually, and I reviewed this on the channel as well. I like this. I would have a bottle of this. If money was no issue and I could own everything, I would have a bottle of Synthetic Jungle. They changed the name to Synthetic Nature, some copyright issue, I think, but very green, very floral, beautiful lily of the valley, jasmine, blackcurrant, hyacinth, patchouli, stearinol acetate, which I don't know what that is, ylang ylang, and basil. And it's very bitter green. I really like the bitter greenness. It really kind of throws me back to kind of the fragrances like if you think about things like Estee Lauder's private collection, which I know I've been talking a lot about Estee Lauder, but God, their old fragrances were on another level. Very few green fragrances can do what this does. So realistic, and the depth of these old Estee Lauders is to die for. So they modeled themselves after number 19 private collection, and Anne Filippo is like a master at understanding florals. That's what I really think about with her. The Haltane video is why I reached out to Ram and how I got to meet you for the Aries Ladores. That's awesome. Haltane was not bad, but so damn synthetic. I despised it. I mean, one of my subscribers, not me, but one of my subscribers said, Ramsey, Haltane smells like Parfum de Marly cloned their own fragrance, because Parfum de Marly and Initio were kind of like the same company or owned by the same parent company, which they didn't like people saying that, but it ended up being true, because when the capital firm, that Accenture, whatever the hell the capital firm was that bought them, they bought both of them at the same time. So that gave it away, It was like Parfum de Marly Initio deal. But anyways, so the guy was like, Haltane smells like Parfum de Marly cloned Oud for Greatness and then put it in a more expensive bottle. And I was like, oh my God, it really does. It's so bad. You should sample Granda Woods Oud Spirit. Never heard of it, man. Right now, the one I would add to my collection that I don't have, Tabak Dore by Bortnikov. Just get the Lattafa one, homie. Lattafa. The Ram likes his boss number one to give me flashbacks to my father's friends wearing 50 sprays. Oh, fuck. I would totally wear 50 sprays of that stuff. I love boss number one, man. Love it. Don't give them 500 of your well-earned coins. Those bastards spend your money in indie houses. Yes. Taffer Oud for glory. Oh, God. I mean, an expensive, hard-to-create oud fragrance should not be able to be cloned for $20, right? Just logic alone should tell you if they can clone it for $20, maybe it's not the high-end, expensive fragrance that you thought it was. Well, it is, because it's whatever the price they said is what it is, but maybe that should put up some red flags, maybe, to someone who's a little bit of a critical thinker. Robert Patter, what about Velvet Oud? Never smelled that one either. Yeah, I think it just highlights just the depth of tobacco perfectly. It's a green molecule and lots of great green scents. Nice. Thanks for sharing that. The Merchant. That's hysterical. That one is more ombre leather at Dushan. Weirdly, I think Haltane smells like a Christmas fir candle. I think it's why I like it so much. Really? You get Christmas fir out of Haltane. Did I miss the Ropion segment? Yeah, yeah, you did, but I didn't really have much to say about him. I called him a technician. Okay, 3 more. Next, we've got Annick Minardo, the great Annick Minardo. Now, when you think about Annick Minardo's creations, what's the very first thing that comes to mind? I'll tell you, the very first thing that comes to mind for me is this kind of fuzzy, warm, benzoin, oriental base that she created. Just feels like you're being just hugged, wrapped in a blanket. You smell it perfectly in something like this little bad boy right here. Jaipur Om is a perfect example of this. This oriental, sensual base, okay? Annick Minardo is one of the masters of creating that spicy, softened, just imagine like the fragrance is just being softened, just broken down like an enzyme. That's kind of her benzoin. The benzoin she uses in the base is so warming, so buttery, so just, oh, I love it. I love Annick Minardo's work. And she's made a lot of fragrances that I think really highlight they really highlight that amazing benzoin base. You'll smell it in a little bit in Body Koros by Yves Saint Laurent. You'll smell it a little bit in Lolita Lempica's Eau Masculine. You'll smell it a little bit in Bois d'Argent. Bois d'Argent from 2004, which inspired Dior Homme, has a little bit of the myrrh, sort of ambery, very sensual base. You'll smell it in something like D Squared Potion. This is a great example of that sensual oriental base. And yeah, Anique Minardo, she really, I think, perfected that base. Very, very impressed with that in her work, among many other things, but very impressed with that. Oud for Greatness is bad, but Haultain is somehow much worse. It is fucking horrendous. It is just an absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. I would not wear that if you gave it to me. I like the aesthetic of that bottle. I almost bought some of those clear bottle Parfum de Marly, but they would have replaced Amouages. I luckily, yes, stick with the Amouages, mate. Missed the beginning again. Allie, welcome, my friend. I was just telling them I wore the X-ray version of Jubilation 25 for Women you sent me yesterday as my scent of the day. Amazing stuff. Amazing. Glad I passed on them. Allie wins. I need to get Al Sharif Elevation soon. I heard good things about those Al Sharif fragrances, Ajay. Let me know what you think. It is very cute. My partner uses that one on a daily basis and saves the ombre leather for special occasions. Nice. About the cap, it looks a bit wonky. First time I smelled Haultain, I also got the Christmas tree vibe. Then Ramsey ruined it for me. You're welcome, by the way. I mean, could you imagine walking around smelling of Haultain? You're welcome. Fragrances I own because of the Ram. Oh, God. These producers should not put oud if it's... I agree with that right there. I agree. There should be like... You should have to have real oud in there to say oud. The problem is then they would put 0.00000000001% in there and then charge $1,000. So they'd be like, see, it's real oud. I can use the word. But yeah, I mean, that is very, very... The whole oud thing has become very... it became like a reason for these companies to charge double, triple, quadruple. They didn't want the gravy train to end. Obviously, why would they? They were selling something that cost them $20 to make in a bottle for $400. Who would want that to end? I mean, and that's why these type of brands like Aries Ladore are so important. I know Russian Adam is a frag head like us, and I know that he GCMS tests his oud and all that stuff before they come out. And so that's why these brands these kind of artisanal brands are so special. And I mean, just think about it. You have a brand where one guy's running the show for the most part, right? Like, if something happens to that one person, imagine no more stuff like this coming out. It's sad to say and think about, but I mean, that's the truth. The weight of these type of releases are from the mind and nose of one person. His hands are getting dirty, distilling the oud. His mind is mixing, distilling with the future creations in mind. So yeah, it's really a proper David versus Goliath story. I enjoy Anique Minardo's work so much. One of my favorites. Body Chorus was my latest from her. Yeah, Body Chorus is great. I'm going to review it one day soon. It probably has oud. That's exactly it, man. Exactly it. Totally get that PDM is overpriced and not industry leaders that they pretend to be, but I still get that fur candle. Reminds me of good... You got to wear what you love, man. You got to wear what you love. Have you tried anything from Messoud? No. I have not. I just smelled Balenciaga Pour Homme for the first time. All right. I mean, I don't know if I would agree with Antaeus and Teatral Scala having a baby, but you got to go with what your nose takes you, brother. I did a Vintage Hall of Fame review on that if you really want to check out my thoughts, Brandon. But I'm glad you got a chance to smell it, man. Balenciaga Pour Homme is one of the all-time greats. That is a milestone in your journey, sire. Milestone. Not heard of them. Body Chorus indeed. Now you know how the duck smells. Have you tried any of Aaron Terrence Hughes? Yes, I hate him. Is La Yucawam close to Tuscan Leather? Yeah, it is. As far as a clone goes, that's not bad. Please be careful when you try oud for happiness. It might destroy your nose. I just put that aside. And one day when we need a good laugh, I'll pull that out and we'll all laugh together. After smelling the oud from Taiwan, I'm now getting oud oils too. I enjoyed the oud from Oud Taiwan more than the fragrance. the depth of smelling the real oud is, I mean, it's like nothing else, honestly. And I completely see why, somebody would have a collection like mine and abandon everything and just go, I want oud only. You know, I totally understand, because it does feel like it's on the top of the mountaintop for me as far as ingredients go. So many people ask, is there anything like Balenciaga Pour Homme? And I always tell them no. But a Bussin Pour Homme in the dry down does get close to Balenciaga Pour Homme, but you have to wait like 2, 3, 4 hours. Balenciaga Pour Homme for me all day, but a Bussin Pour Homme is very, very underrated. It's also discontinued. And I got a bottle when you could get it for like 20 bucks. Now I think they're starting to sell for more. People are starting to realize the connection. I'll review it one of these days, but yeah, it's no comparison. Balenciaga Pour Homme for me. I don't care how much the formula costs. I only care if I like it. I am not here to do maths. I am here to enjoy. Yeah, that's true. Duchefort on the list? No. I love Astara by him. Any Narcissus you like? I did a Narcissus daffodil video, like a This Is Not a Top 10. Check that out. But yes, I actually have a sample. Actually, it's like a fat 10 ml decant of Ostara, thanks to Duchamp. So I will review that one of these days. But there is a Bertrand Duchefort Perfumers portfolio video. If you really want to dive into the weeds, go. Just search Bertrand Duchefort Ramsey and it'll come up. Duchefort for the next part for sure. Oud oils are another ball game. They are very, very addictive and very relaxing, especially at night after a long day. The Bussin does smell like it was based on it, but it's a 90s-ified and no natural. Yes, that's a good way to put it. I tried Oud for Happiness, and Neiman Marcus sales associate was hyping it. For a second, I thought he sprayed Raid on the card. Oh, that's funny. I do wear the Bussin. I do like it. Just wish I could wear Balenciaga Pour Homme every day. Well, you could. You could. Bottle similar to the bottle of Ted Lapidus. Yes. Ted Lapidus and Balenciaga had some shared ownership, as did Jacques Bogart. I think Jacques Bogart, Ted Lapidus, and Balenciaga for a little while on the perfume side had some similarities. Reminds me of Bogart Witness. Yeah, there is. It's a little bit of Bogart Witness and a little bit of Balenciaga Pour Homme. Imagine 50 sprays of Bortnikov Tabak Dori. That will clear the barn out. I really like Tabak Dori. And you don't need 50 sprays. One of that stuff is good. Yeah, Witness, you know, and those early 90s fragrances shared some similarities for sure. Before I used to look for an oud note. Now I know and agree with Russian Adam saying it does and can't smell like anything. Yes, it really can. It really can. I mean, you start to learn, you know, certain like Thai oud can be very fruity. You know, Indian oud can be very, you know, it has that sort of, it's like if you've ever had kombucha, right? There's that fermented feeling. Indian oud has that fermented feeling because they soak the oud and then they distill it, and it gives you that fermented animalic thing you're used to smelling in Indian oud. So you start to get to know the regions, you know. Cambodian oud smells this way. Oud from Laos smells this way. And that's what's so amazing about oud Taiwan is there was no, I've never smelled oud from Taiwan. I mean, I smelled the Chinese oud thanks to Russian Adam's Chinese oud, and then the history of Chinese oud. And, you know, a little bit, because Taiwan and China are very close, I think there is a little bit of this earthy character in here. You'll pick it up. You'll pick it up even more if you had a chance to smell the history of Chinese oud with that very, it's almost like you took a mushroom and set it on fire. This weird earthy fungal feeling to the oud. Very interesting. I wonder, it must be from the soil over there. I don't know. Are all familiar. Oh yeah, Zeno and Heritage. Also, you could add Ungaro Pour Homme 1, the very first one. You could add Escada Pour Homme to that list. You could add Free Life by Aigner. There's so many fragrances that Zeno, I think, really inspired. What's funny about Balenciaga Pour Homme is that the brand itself was doing terribly, but the fragrance was well-known gem. Balenciaga's fragrance kept the company alive. You know, Balenciaga Pour Homme actually did not sell very well. I don't think it did that well. I think it had one run. Like it was like a one, it wasn't produced over and over. It was like a one-run fragrance and then discontinued. I don't think it even lasted a decade. I don't think it made it out of the decade. It came out in 1990. I think by the turn of the century, it was discontinued. I tried and immediately threw up. Several of the oud oils you got are from Mess Oud. Oh, okay. Interesting. I didn't know that. Very interesting. Yeah, thanks for sharing, man. I've enjoyed trying some of those that you sent. I love oud at night, so it's so relaxing for me. If I'm not spraying something else or trying something different, trying those ouds you've sent me recently has been what I've been doing at night. They're amazing. I really appreciate you sharing that. And you know, there really is almost nothing like the depth of real oud, but you have to make sure that you know what you're getting, because some people will trick you. I mean, because oud is so expensive. You do this tiny little bit and you're paying, you know, $200-300. So you have to buy it from somebody reputable. Kina Merjwani, yes. Kina Merjwani is one of, and it's a tough one because that's a very expensive fragrance. I think it was like $1,275 on Sealed Essences or something, Ajay. I can't remember. I reviewed it off of a sample someone sent me. It's my favorite fragrance. It's my favorite fragrance from Taha. And Kinam Urjwani. Agar Aura is the brand. And I think you can still buy it. It's an amazing Cambodian oud. It had fiery aspects. It had so, I mean, Kinam was never my thing. Especially for how expensive it is, but that fragrance blew me away, man. And there's so many just pure ouds I would love to smell from Agar Aura. Taha's like the father of the modern, like the grandfather of the modern oud. Even though he's young, if it wasn't for him, there'd be no Russian Adam. Taha is very influential. Hohang Club is Dead Flowers like Zeno. Yes, I really like that gothic vibe of Hohang Club. Maxim Porhomme. Maxim Porhomme is a little bit like that. Yeah, Dracula meets Antaeus kind of thing. Thank you. And cheap. That thing's been discontinued for like 30 years and you can still get it for like $30. It's crazy. I have no idea why. $12.75. Ugh. Pain and suffering. Ex Idolos 33. I've never smelled it. Yeah, I've never smelled that one. I agree with that mushroom smell you described. Didn't come to my mind at first, but now it's so obvious. Oud Taiwan is not what you would expect hearing the word oud. Maybe it's, but it's very interesting. Yeah, some ouds can be kind of green, foresty, earthy smelling too. I think that's where that one falls. Is there a list O? Any opinions on Lolita Olympica Eau Masculine Intense? Yes. If it's this one, I would say get it. Is it the Eau de Parfum Intense? Because if it is, I actually like this better than the original Eau Masculine. I think it's like, this is like one of my favorite black licorice fragrances I've ever smelled. And she's used an oud note here, and she used iris. So it's posh. It's got a Nick Minardo's kind of signature. They let her remake her own, do her own flanker. It sucks that Lolita Olympica discontinued all of these because these are really, really good. And as far as black licorice goes, I don't know if there's a better black licorice fragrance in my collection that does it better than, like, this is top of the hill. Very, very good. I'll review it. I'll review it one day, but yes, if it's a reasonable price, like if you can get it for $100, give or take, go for it. Yeah, it's really the next place to go for a hardcore frag head. Funny you should say that. I did an entire real oud video. Just look up Ramsey real oud. It'll probably come up. This is not a top 10 real oud. With oud, the thing is sometimes you see the prices and you think it's probably cheaper to fight myself there and cut the tree myself. It's like medicinal oud. Nice. Very nice. Balenciaga for Men from the 50s, but it doesn't smell. I'm not familiar with that Balenciaga for Men at all. Brandon, you are. You're like the only one I've ever seen with that bottle even. So, I mean, I don't know where you get some of these fragrances, but you get some rare ass shit, man. Rare ass shit. That Balenciaga for Men I've never even seen before. It's crazy. Better get to it, Noah. I just wanted to see him pull the exact random scent I mentioned out of the curio cabinet. Yes. Oh, cabinet of darkness, hand me the intense version. I need an assistant. I need one of those assistants that, walks around the ring at the UFC fights with the sign round 2, I need her walking back and forth behind me. All of a sudden, I would double my subscribers. I love the women's counterpart, L'Eau de Parfum. Not familiar with that one, Lily. Not familiar with that. Okay, next perfumer on the list, Pierre Bourdon. So what do you think of when you instantly think of Pierre Bourdon? What's the very first thing that comes to mind? For me, here's what comes to mind with Pierre Bourdon. In 1981, he created Kouros. Okay, Kouros is, to me, the greatest animalic scent in a designer. The biggest, you had to have the biggest balls to release a scent like this with this amount of animalis in it. The story, it's interesting because there's a story about Pierre Bourdon trying to sell the scent when it was being produced, and the girl who was in a position of power to make the decision, Pierre Bourdon realized that whenever he would give her a version with more animalis in it, she liked it more. So he was like, every time he handed her a new version, he would increase it by like 10%, 5%. Well, those are big increases, right? He was like, if I would have continued to meet with her, God knows how much animalis, because I was just increasing it every time because I realized she liked it. And so obviously Kouros comes out. It's one of the most primal animalic fragrances I've ever smelled, ever, in all of the fragrances I've smelled. Kouros kind of, especially the vintage Charles of the Ritz versions, it is, I mean, unbelievable. It almost looks like it's like piss yellow stain around. I know my camera's shit, but you can probably kind of see the piss yellow. It looks like Kouros just pissed all over the outside of my bottle. But there's something very primal and animalic about this, and I love Kouros. And then in the same decade, I don't have Cool Water, but I have Green Irish Tweed. Okay. So he created the most animalic fragrance and kind of the new definition of freshness with Green Irish Tweed meets Cool Water, let's say, in the same decade, right? They say like being a genius is being able to hold 2 competing ideas in your brain at the same time. He did it all in 1 decade. That's Pierre Bourdon's brilliance to me. The other thing that comes to mind, of course, is Creed, because without Pierre Bourdon, Creed in its modern form would not exist. Without Pierre Bourdon, at least in my opinion, fragrances like Aventus, I use this whole damn bottle, by the way, Aventus would not exist. This was a 2016 batch, 16 A01, whole bottle. And so, obviously Jean-Christophe Hérault was a disciple of Pierre Bourdon. Pierre Bourdon made so many scents with pineapple in them 15 years before Aventus ever came out. And so when I think of Pierre Bourdon, those are kind of the very first things that come to mind. The contrast of animalic and clean, being able to create both types of fragrances, and of course what he did for the House of Creed. And you could just take away the Creed logo and just replace it with Pierre Bourdon's head. I mean, he, like a Roman style Pierre Bourdon looking off into the sunset, or sunrise. Pierre Bourdon is, to me, one of the greatest perfumers of all time. And also, if you ever listen to him speak, man, I think he's one of the smartest people to have become a perfumer. I think he's a certified genius. He loves to read. Whenever there's a very funny story. So whenever he was going to teach Julian Rasquinet, or maybe it was Jean-Christophe Hérault, I can't remember, one of them, there was like a 8 or a 10 volume book series that he wanted them to read. And he basically said, I'll train you, but if you won't read this, I won't train you. And it was like one of those encyclopedia style, like 10 volumes. It was a long, I forget the book. But he said, if you want me to train you, you have to read this. It teaches you about patience and all this stuff. So he was training them not just to make perfume, to basically take the next step of their lives. I really, I really respect Pierre Bourdon as a man, from listening to him speak and the way he talks, and the brain that he has, and also his perfume career. I really respect him. The Jean Cage of fragrances. No, get a guy in a Speedo. Need more female demographics. Oh, Lily. No, this is my channel. I'm making the decisions here. My dad had Koros in the 80s, and I forgot about it until you're whole. How could you forget about Koros? The all-time great. Koros to me is, and then of course it spawned all of these amazing flankers. This stuff, Koros Eau de Sport, is probably my favorite, but I smelled this for the first time just yesterday because it just arrived basically. And my God, man, this is really, really good. So thank you to Angie for your generosity. Oh, fuck. I'm really digging these for summer. Amazing stuff. Both are discontinued, of course. Koros Fresh Air and Koros Eau de Sport. But think of all the flankers it spawned. And then, of course, there's a million cool water flankers. And needs a midget named Gretch who says, must get more oud. Oh, man. That's funny. I love Koros more each time I wear it, but it wasn't an instant love. See, it was an instant love for me. It was an absolute instant love for me. Koros is probably the most daring release in mainstream. Yeah, I would agree with that. Smelling Koros here is like hearing Stockhausen for the first time. Yeah. Spraying it right now. Let's go, Allie. Canali for Men, Pierre Bourdon, that had a pineapple note. The one Francesco Smalto Full Choke, the one that kind of looks like a large joystick, had a pineapple note. Magnificent wax on, wax off education. That's right. If anyone needs a Koros, I know of a 2003 for a solid price. A solid, eh? Koros at Enchanté. Yes, that's right. Anuj, what's your ranking for Koros and its flankers? I only know two is the thing. So it would be Koros at the top, then Koros Eau de Sport, then Koros Fresh Air. Those are the only ones I know. I haven't smelled any of the other ones. So I'm sorry. I can't give you a proper ranking. But, I mean, I don't know if you can see how yellow that looks. Look at that atomizer. This came from Anuj, by the way. This was in the great Anuj's warehouse. I don't know if you can read the back, but it's in France. Probably not. Probably because my shitty camera. I do need to get a new camera. I also need to get a new microphone. So when I'm streaming, I can talk and you guys can hear me. But if someone comes on, I can't hear you through this microphone. I thought it would do both, but I'm failing at my YouTubing setup. Koros smells just like a locker room after a football game. Dirty, sweaty, mixing with showering. Sounds crazy, but it takes me there. There's absolutely something to do with contrasts of dirty and clean. No doubt about it. No doubt. What's your thoughts on Duc de Vervins? I really like it. I have the extreme version. It's a really good aromatic fougere. See, Body Koros is the one that I wouldn't even put that in the Koros line. I don't think Body Koros really has anything to do with Koros, you know? Ooh, that's a tough one. Both. I'll take them both. I can testify as a 50-year-old homosexual that yes, Koros was very popular in my community, and we were bathroom people during those days. That's interesting. I had a friend tell me that it was actually Antaeus, not Koros, that was most popular in the homosexual community, but I wasn't around in the 80s, so I cannot say one way or the other, but I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, and finally, we're going to go to Julian Rasquinet, and the reason is because, of course, Julian Rasquinet was one of Pierre Bourdon's pupils. So when you think of Julian Rasquinet, what's the very first thing that comes to mind? I will tell you the very first thing that comes to mind for me. And that is Middle Eastern style fragrances. So Julian Rasquinet basically, he did something very smart economically. He looked at the map and said, there is a lack of perfumers in the Middle East. Like Dubai is one of the few places where there is a great need for perfumer. So he moved after being trained by Pierre Bourdon. He moved to the Middle East and basically learned Middle Eastern style perfumery. Moved to Dubai, started creating these fragrances with ouds and big oriental bases and all this stuff. And then he started putting stuff out like, for example, this little bad boy, Histoires de Parfum. It's from the Rare line, and it's called Fidelis. Okay, and Fidelis is an amazing coffee oud. I'll review this one of these days as well. And you can kind of start to see the ground floor for, which I think is probably his best oud fragrance he's ever released, and it's called the Moon. So in Fidelis, you can kind of see the base. This takes it to the next level. The Moon, I think after much deliberation and wearing Promise, the Night, Dawn, the Moon, I think the Moon is probably my favorite of that line. Although, if I would love a bottle of Dawn. Dawn's the one I don't own. It's the only one of the group I don't own. Well, that's not true. I don't own the Night either. I would actually like both, but I have samples of both. I have decants of both, Dawn and the Night. That's how I reviewed them. But of the bottles I own, the Moon is kind of, I think, overtaken Promise, because I've gotten more and more of those amber woods that really put Rich Mitch off. And I think the Moon is one of Julian Rasquinet. There's this shisha tobacco feeling, like a hookah tobacco in here, with the raspberry and the ambers and the smoky resins. And oh, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. And I have a decant of this as well. That's why it doesn't look like there's much of this used. I've been wearing the decant, but yes, it is really, the Moon is definitely worth your time. And if you're into this Middle Eastern style perfumery, of course, he also did Royal Oud. And so whenever Olivier Creed had finally sold the brand and said he doesn't even care if they know that, the Creeds aren't the Perfumers anymore, because for the longest time, it always said Olivier and Erwin Creed were the Perfumers. Well, after he sold the brand, Olivier Creed was like, fuck it, tell him you're the perfumer. I don't care. So Julian Rasquinet was able to say he was the perfumer for Royal Oud. And if you smell Bois d'Orage, which is basically French Lover by Pierre Bourdon, you will definitely see similarities between master and student. Okay. But again, we're staying with oud, and that's Julian Rasquinet's kind of his forte. And so Julian Rasquinet, for me, I think is one of the best westernized Middle East style creators, if that makes sense. So yes, those are 10 perfumers that some kind of things that I think they'll be known for legacy wise. Let's catch up with the comments, and then I'm going to hit the damn gym because it's already 8:30. I love Drakkar Noir. I think any age can wear it. Agreed. I agree with you, Ben. Yes, good old Royal Cedar. Antaeus was the first one for real dates for fancy times. Polo Green Vintage has a dry down similar to Drakkar. I don't know if I agree with that one, Robert. Corals for the bathroom, Antaeus for the dining room. Julian Rasquinet is top tier. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. I mean, I think you should look into getting a vintage bottle of Polo Green because it's a great fragrance, but don't expect Drakkar Noir, in my opinion. Caesar's Man Legendary Cologne. Yes, if you like Drakkar Noir and you want kind of a vibe, Caesar's Man Legendary Cologne's a good one. Or Duc de Vervennes Extreme. Can't find any legendary editions in the UK and Iceland. Oh, that sucks. That sucks. I wish more men wore coral, such a carnal scent. I agree with you. I wish more men wore fragrances that make them smell like men and not the disgusting modern sweet stuff that's going around. Yeah, you want to get either the Cosmere version or a Warner version. If you can find one of those two versions, you'll be good. What's the current Caesar's Man like? I don't know about the current. I don't know. Plastic top covering, where it covers a bit of the bottom. Not sure if it's vintage for the early 2000s. I like Royal Oud more than French Lover. Man, that is a really, really tough call, but I might have to agree with you on that because of my experience with it. Actually, I know I told you guys this before, but this is my second flacon of Royal Oud, not the big 500 ml. The other one I had was the 250 ml, but I went through 250 mils of Royal Oud. Think about that for a second. I went through 250 mils. I used to wear it like to the office constantly in the mid like 2013, 14. That was like my office set. I wore it constantly to the office, day in and day out. I wore Royal Oud I finished a 250 mil flacon. Think about that. That's a hell of a feat for me. The vintage Polo Green specifically, have a bottle with the plastic. Where was I? Love Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme back in the day. Yeah, that's a good shout. If you can get the one with the sticker on it, the made in Italy. Need to get that vintage Chorus? Yes, you do. I'm shocked you don't have one. I think current Chorus isn't that challenging. Yeah, it's not. They've as the years have gone on, they slowly have tamed it down more and more and more. You know how it goes. Sleeping time, me too, man. Well, gym time, then sleeping time. Have you smelled thamine? I've smelled 0 thamines. None. Maybe one day I will. I reached out to the brand and tried to see if they would send me some, but they ignored me. Royal Oud lasts 30 minutes on me. Really? Maybe the newer stuff has been weakened because the old stuff actually, as far as Creed goes, lasted most of the day. I would have no problem getting a full 8-hour workday out of it. Had that thing. Very primal. Very primal. Morning. Royal smells great, but you got to take it for what it's worth. Royal Cedar. Yes, that's right. Sense of South Jersey is a great channel. Yes, he's good. Actually, Keelan sold me this bottle, and it's an amazing fragrance too that no one talks about. It's called Carrington. And I'll review this one of these days and talk about it, but I really, really like Carrington from the mid-'80s. It is so fucking good. So much good stuff from the old days, man. And I don't think this was super expensive, but I do think Charles of the Ritz made it. So, yes. The Royal Oud. If you had to get one Creed, would it be Royal Oud? That's a tough one, man. Venezia is probably one of my favorite Creeds because it's almost like a high-end Shalimar. But I had some amazing experience, history with Aventus. I loved wearing those older bottles of Aventus. I'm not going to lie. I did a ranked Creed list. So probably Royal Oud would be the one that I have the most memories with. But I really enjoyed those older batches of Aventus. And I really, really like Venezia. Venezia is definitely the best feminine marketed Creed I've ever come across. So, yeah. I'm going to add that Taiwan Oud in the Royal Oud bottle and see what the hell happens. You stop it right now. We're going to check you into a mental hospital. Anubis and Tabak Verde are on the way. Congrats, man. Yeah, those are two fantastic fragrances. You're in for a treat. Put 10 sprays of Amouage Gold, man, and see what happens when I go to the gym. Actually, I'm wearing Quirtus. I don't need to put 10. I mean, you can still see Quirtus stained my hand. I'm going to spray some Quirtus on and go to the gym. Fuck them. Look at my neck. That's a Quirtus blotch right there. You can see the skin color change where Quirtus just hit me. So, yes, but I do have to call it because I got to hit the gym, get to sleep, be at the office, be up tomorrow at 6 a.m. So this is fun, man. These streams are fun, and I hope you like the video idea. And maybe we'll get 1 or 2 more streams in before. I told you this is not a fragrances with the note in the name, but doesn't use the material. Yes, you did tell me that. You did, damn it, Lily. And I will take your advice on that. I feel like I need to make a note. I need to make a note of this great recommendation because I will forget. Continue to remind me. Unlike some, I will take you up on your amazing recommendations, Lily. So we will try to do maybe one or two more live streams before the great Liz Moore's live stream on August 10th at 11 a.m. I hope you guys can make it live. Come prepared, bright and early, sunny-eyed. Have your questions ready for the great Liz Moore's. Come prepared because I will be taking questions from the audience, and she is usually very open about answering questions. So come prepared. Cannot wait to chat with her again. I actually sprayed Epona again yesterday, and it's amazing. So I hope you guys all have your Epona bottles or at least samples ready so you can chat with her about it. So everyone have a good night. Cheers, and thanks for joining us and being a part of this, guys. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.